Chapter 187. After seeing the news, Lan Shi's face turned scarlet red. Holding on to an entertainment magazine, she stomped into Luo Hao's office in high heels and threw it in front of him. Why did you make the decision on your own? Luo Hao put down the documents in his hands and stood up from his chair. He then explained to Lan Shi, because if we wait any longer, Tongning will retaliate. She is a woman that likes to think. With the information we have, it is enough to destroy her. Since that's the case, why should we continue to wait? Lan Shi did not respond. To be exact, she knew Luo Hao was doing the right thing, but she didn't like people that made decisions on their own. Tongning was currently in the UK. As long as Cheng Tian did not interfere with PR and allowed the scandal to spread, all that awaited Tongning was the hatred and destruction of the netizens. Don't forget, Tongning was even able to walk away from the bed-climbing scandal. This time, I will not let her make a comeback. I have a series of preparations. After speaking, Luo Hao showed Lan Shi the information he had prepared. As long as Tongning dared to refute him, he would hand over a set of information to slap her in the face. He refused to believe that this time, no one would be able to save Tongning. Oh God, I never thought Tongning would appear so aloof on the outside, but on the inside, she is actually so lustful. I previously heard that when she went overseas for work, she never stayed in a hotel arranged by the agency. Where else could she have gone? She must have found someone to satisfy her lust. Didn't she say she doesn't have a boyfriend? Previously, during Feng Kai's interview, I already felt her relationship with the Backview Dream Man was a bit ambiguous. Am I the only one that noticed she seduced a married man? I've already said this bitch has a problem. Yet a bunch of people praised her for having a high EQ. She's almost been hyped up. Isn't she just a model? Dominating the trending searches all day long. Is that okay? I bet that woman is still lying under a foreign hunk. In an instant, comments attacking Tongning threatened to crash the servers. As for the media outlet that released the news, they had never seen such a high number of reposts before. They couldn't stop laughing. Tell the bitch to stay in London and never come back. After the incident broke out, the media immediately contacted Cheng Tian Entertainment to ask the artist's director if he was aware of Tongning's situation. Luo Hao simply replied, I'm not too sure. After the incident broke out, Cheng Tian Entertainment did not do anything. This gave the public a signal. Cheng Tian Entertainment had chosen to be passive towards Tongning's matter. This meant there was indeed a problem with Tongning, and Cheng Tian Entertainment had no choice but to give up. The media immediately contacted An Zihao. At this time, An Zihao was watching Tongning's rehearsal. When he received the phone call, he had no idea what was going on. He immediately asked Long Jie to do a search on his phone. Long Jie did not look too good. As she handed it to An Zihao, her neck was red with anger. An Zihao received the phone and looked at it. He gestured for her to comfort Tongning and not let her see through his act. Right now, the most important thing to her was JK's show. Long Jie tried her best to suppress the anger in her heart as she made an okay gesture. An Zihao held onto his phone as he walked out of the venue. Standing outside the church, he gave Lan Shi a phone call. President Lan, you sure have a good plan. Tongning sure is unlucky. After working so hard for so long, in the end, she has been slandered by her own agency. This time, she can be completely blackened. Doesn't that mean your wish has come true? Zihao, even if you give up on Tongning, there are still thousands of Tangnings out there. She only has herself to blame for her current situation. Don't you know that? Lan Shi scoffed in disdain. If she was a little more obedient and didn't think too much, she would definitely have a bright future ahead of her. Not to mention JK's show, even the best would be hers. Since she has gotten to this point, she can't blame anyone. And Zihao took a deep breath. He suddenly felt Lan Shi was quite pitiful. Tongning simply wanted to pursue her dreams. She didn't get in anyone's way. So, I'm sorry, Lan Shi. Lan Shi could tell there was a hidden meaning in An Zihao's words as her eyebrows slowly furrowed. What do you mean? An Zihao hesitated for a moment before asking, did you also cause Yun Xian's death? Hearing this question, hearing this name that hadn't been mentioned for a long time, Lan Shi froze for a moment before scoffing. You know better than me how Yin Xian died. As for Tongning, I want her to never be able to reincarnate. And Zihao felt he had nothing else to say to Lan Shi, so he hung up the phone. However, he did not make this phone call for nothing, because he had recorded it. Afterwards, and Zihao picked up a call from the Beijing media and yelled, "None of this is the truth. I hope the media can follow their professional ethics and not insult someone's innocence." Hairui CEO's office. After returning to Beijing, Mo Ting had just sat down when he saw the rumor online. He immediately gave An Zihao a phone call. Mo Ting, don't worry, Tongning doesn't know yet. I have no intention of letting her know in case it affects her JK show. An Zihao reassured. Plus, I have a recording in my hands that proves Lan Shi deliberately defamed Tongning. Take good care of Tongning, don't let her mood be affected. Also, send me the recording. Mo Ting instructed. The Mo Ting at this moment was completely different to how he normally felt when he was with Tongning. It was at this moment that An Zihao realized this Mo Ting was the same Mo Ting that the public was familiar with. He was an absolute king that had the power to rule over everything. I'll send it over right away. An Zihao felt that if he kept the recording in his hands, it wouldn't be as useful as handing it to Mo Ting. So, An Zihao directly sent the recording to Mo Ting. However, he forgot that there was a part of the recording that talked about Yin Xian's death. Mo Ting received the recording and listened to it once. He then instructed someone to get rid of the part of Yin Xian and handed it to Lu Che for him to investigate. Put this recording on the most eye-catching headline and place it in the hottest spot for a month. No one is allowed to remove it from the hottest searches. Let's call it, Tongning got defamed because she offended you. A month. Lu Che was a little surprised. Didn't that mean Cheng Tian was waiting to be gang raped? A month. On top of that, get some of the media to extract the single sentence in the recording, and find a professional team to create a joke for President Lan. Doesn't she want absolute power? I'll give it to her right now. After speaking, Mo Ting handed his phone to Lu Che. Remember, if anyone wants to buy the rankings, use double the price to suppress them. Put Cheng Tian's news on the headlines for a month. Chapter 188. Hey, have you guys seen the recording on the top trending topic? What gossip is it this time? What else could it be? It turns out the CEO of Cheng Tian Entertainment hired someone to slander Tongning yesterday, because she didn't listen to her. Oh God, who does she think she is? Does she think she's a god that rules over others? Another reversal? Netizens quickly clicked open the top trending topic and discovered it was a complete recording. Rumor had it that the voices belonged to Tongning's manager, An Zihao, and Cheng Tian's CEO Lan Shi. Plenty of people had seen them before, so they were certain the voices belonged to them. As for the recording, it was An Zihao questioning Lan Shi about why she wasn't satisfied after she had ruined Tongning's reputation. In response, Lan Shi arrogantly explained that it was because Tongning was disobedient that she decided to take revenge. She didn't even hesitate to destroy her own model. Netizens began to discuss. The entertainment industry was indeed a deep pool. When looking at the truth, one should never look at the surface. Afterwards, Tongning quickly became the weaker party. Especially those that had similar experiences, they immediately expressed their own experiences, and expressed their support for Tongning in the comments below the post. Being rich is great, but being rich enough to destroy other people's dreams and lives is completely rubbish. Lan Shi is just the tip of the iceberg. Forgive me for being blunt, but the entertainment industry is a stinking drain that only holds rubbish. Actually, I want to say who posted this message. Really, it's kind of cool. The reason why Tongning is being slandered is because she has stood in the way of too many people. She is too pure and innocent. The industry loves to associate with evil. Tongning, if you continue to be so innocent, you will be done for. But I will still support you. By the way, did you ask someone to post this on the headlines? If it was, please accept my knees. In less than a day, the tables had turned. Of course, the audience had already gotten used to Tongning being slandered, so they weren't too surprised by the final reversal. But the content that was revealed was still enough for them to discuss excitedly. Meanwhile, night had just fallen. Inside Lan Shi's high-class apartment, she sat on the soft sofa, staring at the headlines of the entertainment news. Her heart was filled with anger. Lan Shi pulled out her phone and gave Luo Hao a phone call, telling him to find someone to deal with it. But Luo Hao told her, "It's no use. If I pay to take down the rankings, the other party will immediately double the price." "Did you find out who did this?" Lan Shi stood up from the sofa and paced back and forth in the living room. "And Zihao was definitely the one who gave us the recording, but who is behind this powerful and influential person? Who did Zihao contact? I can't find anything." It could be Zihao himself, or it could be him and Tongning. Or perhaps Zihao has found an opponent. "Didn't you say it's foolproof? Didn't you say you were going to destroy Tongning's reputation? Who was the one who got beaten up in the end?" "It's me. Do you know how embarrassed I felt when the higher-ups of Qingtian saw this? I can't wait to find a hole to hide in." Lan Shi said angrily. Because of her emotions, her stomach hurt as she knelt on the floor. And Zihao has been in the industry for so many years. Even if it's not as easy to build connections as before, finding your enemies is a piece of cake. So President Lan, removing Zihao from his position as Tongning's manager cannot be delayed. The first thing Luo Hao thought of was to separate Tongning and Zihao. But they had never thought that in fact, the person that had been playing them like monkeys behind their backs was Mo Ting. It had always been Mo Ting. Anyway, didn't you plan to poach someone from another agency? According to Zihao's capabilities, doing something like this is the best way to make use of him. We need to make sure Tongning is isolated and helpless before we can move on to the next step. They had just made a move and they were already beaten up. Yet, they still wanted to move on to the next step? Lan Shi knelt on the sofa and took deep breaths. First, think of a way to remove the headlines. Then give Zihao a phone call and ask him to find a new manager. "I know what to do." Luo Hao was indeed meticulous and calm. But sometimes there were some things that a mere artist-director like him could not change. For example, take Cheng Tian's search results for example. No matter what he did, he couldn't shake them off. London. Tonight, JK's show was about to begin. Over the past 2 days, Tongning had been busy rehearsing, meeting with JK's designers and trying to gain control of the company's resources. So, she had no idea Beijing was in chaos because of her. Lan Shi and Zihao's recording had yet to be removed from the front page of the internet. As a result, Cheng Tian had suffered a lot of damage, especially to their reputation. But who was to blame? As soon as Tongning had time, she would call Mo Ting. But Mo Ting did not tell her about this interesting incident. Because of the exposure of the recording, the paparazzi that Lan Shi had previously hired had no choice but to withdraw. But this didn't mean Tongning wasn't in danger. Don't forget, there was still a reporter from Huarong waiting to catch her. "Are you nervous?" Take a deep breath. Just before the show started, Long Jie asked as she fanned Tongning. Tongning looked at the chaotic backstage with a calm expression. "I can't believe it." This time, no one was going to steal her finale, and no one was going to argue with her. This was a runway that belonged solely to her. A runway that was purely for the sake of Asian models. "You can't believe Lan Shi hasn't come to cause trouble, right?" Long Jie smiled. "Right now, she can't even take care of herself. How could she have the time to deal with you?" "What do you mean?" Long Jie did not say a word, but she had a meaningful smile on her face. Of course, she did not tell Tongning that there was a person that had once again left work to travel across the ocean, just to witness her every beautiful moment. This person was in the audience. Seeing Long Jie did not respond, Tongning did not ask any further. After all, she was going to find out sooner or later. "And Zihao is still on the phone outside. Let me go check on him, the show is about to start." Long Jie was afraid Tongning would ask, so she found an excuse to leave to look for Zihao. At this time, Zihao was filled with anger and complicated emotions. "It was the agency's decision to let you leave Tongning. As long as you are still Qingtian's manager, you will have to obey our arrangements." On the other end of the phone, Luo Hao said firmly. Of course, you can leave Qingtian, but Tongning will still be a model. We will find a new manager to follow her, so there is no need for you. If you put more effort into training newcomers, you will have more than just Hua Yuan. Why must you always go against Tongning? And Zihao couldn't understand. Lan Shi actually wanted to remove him from his position as Tongning's manager. Chapter 189. It's not that we want to go against Tongning, it's that Tongning wants to go against us. The agency is a team, but as the agency's model, when has Tongning ever obeyed Lan Shi's orders? And Zihao, don't forget, without Qingtian, there would be no you and there would be no Tongning today. Luo Hao's words were powerful. His tone was filled with arrogance and mockery. No, and Zihao, you have already lost the right to be a top manager because you betrayed Lan Shi. After hearing Luo Hao's words, and Zihao's lips curved upwards in mockery. However, his mood was no longer as heavy as before. Luo Hao, whether I have the right or not is not up to you to decide. After all, the position of artist director was given to you by Lan Shi because I gave it up. I seem to understand how to be a manager better than you. Plus, you need to be a person first. As for my position, no one in Qingtian can replace me. I believe, with my experience and knowledge of Qingtian's secrets, even if Lan Shi were to choose someone to leave, it would not be me and Zihao. After speaking, and Zihao hung up the phone. He had no intention of taking Lan Shi's orders to heart. However, this conversation was eventually overheard by Long Jie, who had come out to look for Tongning. The show has already started, do you want to watch? Of course I want to watch. This is Tongning's international runway. What did the international runway represent? His inbox was filled with invitations. The emails that were once in Chinese had all been converted to English. This was before Tongning had even walked on the runway. JK's publicity campaign had already included a mysterious Asian face. The reason why people had faith in Tongning was because of the Oriental trend that she had created in North America. Over the past few years, Oriental elements had become a popular element in the fashion industry. And Zihao and Long Jie looked at each other. Just as they were about to enter the church, they turned around and saw two Americans, a man and a woman, squatting on the steps and smoking. Originally, this wasn't a big deal, but Zihao was sensitive enough to overhear the words Tongning coming from their mouths. How much did you receive from them? Those nouveau riches from the East sure offered a lot of money. However, I only told Gabby half the amount, and he agreed to push that Asian model down on the runway today. Gabby. And Zihao remembered this name. It was Tongning's runway partner. He wanted to push Tongning down on the runway? And Zihao wore a complicated expression on his face. Because if Tongning fell on the international stage, he knew better than anyone what it meant. It meant that Tongning's international career could very well come to an end. As for why Gabby wanted to frame Tongning for the sake of money, it had to be explained from the current state of the modeling industry. Male models and female models were different. Most male models worked part-time, and only a small number of them were able to make a name for themselves. Their appearance fees could not be compared to those of female models, especially famous models. Especially when this male model was not particularly outstanding. Therefore, they couldn't ask for more money. Zihao, why are you in a daze? Long Jie asked. And Zihao thought for a moment before asking, is President Mo here? He's in the audience. What's wrong? Long Jie looked at Zihao suspiciously as he strode towards the audience. At this moment, Mo Ting was sitting in a corner of the audience dressed in a dark blue retro suit. Because of his outstanding appearance and noble aura, even amongst the group of fashion celebrities, he had an irresistible charm. Seeing the calm Mo Ting, Zihao felt he had found Tongning's backing. So he quickly walked over and whispered a few words in Mo Ting's ear. Mo Ting's gaze was originally cold and unapproachable, but after hearing Zihao's words, his gaze was as sharp as an eagle's. Name your price first and negotiate with him. No matter how much it is, Mo Ting replied coldly. As for the debt, we can settle it after the show is over. And Zihao understood Mo Ting's intentions. At a time like this, using money was the best option. But was it too late to name a price now? Gabby was indeed Launchi's backup plan. Even if the South Korean paparazzi returned empty-handed, she was not going to let Tongning get what she wanted. International runway? Did she really think that just because she gave it to you, she was supporting you? Launchi looked at the exquisite watch on her wrist and revealed a look of mockery. She wanted Tongning to know she could send her to the highest place, but she could also pull her down at any time. Just wait and see how our Asian Tongning will embarrass herself on JK's show at London Fashion Week. Time slowly passed. Below the stage, Ting didn't usually pay attention to things like this. But when it actually happened to Tongning, he couldn't help but feel a little worried. But no one could understand the way he occasionally touched his earlobe was a sign that he was nervous. JK's show had already begun. Accompanied by soothing classical music, the opening models walked onto the runway from the left and right. Not long after, Ziheo finally returned to Ting's side. He lowered his head in front of Ting, indicating he had completed his task. But even so, Ting did not have much trust in the Americans. Did you warn Tongning? I'm not sure if Long Jie has found Tongning yet. Ting remained silent for a moment without saying another word. He had already done everything he could. If he continued to put in more effort, it would only affect Tongning's show. I have faith in Tongning. Even if she does come across a problem, she will definitely be able to resolve it. Plus, she has always been wary of Gabby. Ting did not listen to a single word. He did not see a single thing. This troublesome wife of his, it seemed, he really needed to bring her under his banner before he could truly feel at ease. After JK's show was over, Tongning would have her sights set on becoming an international supermodel. According to her abilities, it wouldn't be long before she became a supermodel. Was just around the corner. Tongning's finale will be the 23rd runway. Ting looked at the entrance of the church and listened to the sound of the camera shutters. He suddenly realized he was so nervous that he actually broke out in a cold sweat. Little Tongning, work harder. You've already overcome so many obstacles. Don't fall on the international runway. I don't think you look bad, but how much longer will your confidence and courage stagnate? It didn't take long before the church was filled with a loud round of applause and screams. Ting and Ziheo lifted their heads to find Tongning, and the British male model Gabby had already appeared in front of everyone. Tongning was dressed in a deep V-neck black dress. She looked sexy and devilish. The datura flower on her shoulder looked like it was about to blossom and be reborn. It carried with it a sense of struggle. Beautiful. Too beautiful. This kind of beauty was extremely flamboyant and left a deep impression on one's first glance. It could be said, it was unforgettable. She would make the entire venue pale in comparison. However, Ting and Ziheo watched nervously as Tongning walked out, especially as the male model approached her. Chapter 190. Who is this Asian model? Her legs are the most beautiful I have ever seen. She should be awarded first place in the world. Oh, my God. Is this an angel acting as the devil? She is stunning and beautiful. Tongning was confident and flamboyant. Especially after stepping onto the runway, she seemed to have changed into a completely different person. It was like she was born for the runway. Because through her eyes and aura, she revealed the soul of her clothes. The crowd erupted into applause. Many of the foreigners even screamed as they stood up and raised their hands in the air in praise. Meanwhile, the thing that worried Ting and Ziheo did not happen. Compared to Tongning, the person that acted unnaturally was Gabby. On stage, Tongning briefly caught sight of Ting's figure. As their eyes met, it was like they had 1,000 things to say, but they didn't need to say them. I won't miss any of your important turns, because I can't let you stand on the stage alone and have no one to cheer you on, especially if you fail and everyone is waiting to laugh at you. But I will definitely be the one to help you back up. Tongning looked at Ting's almost perfect face and wanted to smile at him. But because of the clothes she was wearing, all she could do was reveal a flirtatious smile. This caused the crowd below the stage to go crazy. Afterwards, Tongning and Gabby swapped places. This was an opportunity for Gabby to make his move. But just as Emoting and Nziheo clenched their fists, they realized Gabby had no intention of doing so. He then turned around and walked away. Even though Tongning's figure had disappeared from the backstage, the audience's mind was still filled with images of her for a few minutes. Her aura, her looks, her heaven-defying legs, and her flirtatious smile. Above all, the big names in the fashion industry all declared that this Asian model would definitely become famous throughout the world. And they had already found out her name, Tongning. Afterwards, there were so many beautiful clothes that no one had the time to appreciate. But they still wanted to see this Asian model again. It wasn't easy for them to wait for the show to end. The designer led Tongning to the front of the stage as everyone stood up, and gave her a thumbs up. However, Tongning's eyes were glued to Emoting, who was sitting in the back row. "This is your glory. I'm proud of you." Tongning understood his lips as she smiled with tears in her eyes. It wasn't easy for her to resist the urge to run over and hug Emoting. At the same time, Lan Shi, who was waiting to see Tongning make a fool of herself, received a photo of Tongning, like a queen, stunning the entire audience. Fashion celebrities that had seen JK's show all gave their comments on Tongning. The purest soul, the best, and the walking runway. Afterwards, Lan Shi gave Gabby's manager a phone call and asked why they didn't go according to plan. "We agreed in advance that we can't guarantee success," the other party replied in English. "Fuck you, foreigner." Lan Shi cursed before downing the glass of wine in her hand. This was because Tongning seemed to be her natural nemesis. It was as if the more she tried to stop Tongning, the more Tongning would become. This time he even became famous after a single battle at JK's show. That was equivalent to being plated with a layer of gold. It was clearly on a different level from the domestic A-grade models. As for her, she was still on the hottest headlines on the internet, being attacked day and night by netizens. After removing her makeup, Tongning accepted an interview from a few media outlets before leaving the church under Nziheo's cover. Emoting's car was parked nearby. As soon as he saw Tongning, he immediately picked her up and drove her back to the manor. The reporter from Huarong Studio tailed Emoting's sports car the entire time. Because the glass was made of a special material, he had no way of getting a photo of the person in front of him. It wasn't until they entered the private manor that the reporter's car was stopped at the entrance that he reluctantly found a place to park his car. He then hid in a corner of the manor, wondering if he would be lucky enough to bump into Tongning. After entering the manor, Emoting led Tongning up to the second floor. After pushing open the bedroom door, he pressed Tongning against the wall and kissed her. "Tonight, I've been restraining myself. I've been restraining the urge to hug and kiss you." After speaking, Emoting removed his suit jacket and threw it on the floor. Tongning leaned against the wall and hooked her arms around Emoting's neck. Her fingers dug into Emoting's shoulders. She too wanted to keep this man by her side at all times. She wanted to hold him in her embrace. She wanted to see him and kiss him wherever she went. No one knew who ignited the spark, but the couple's lips were naturally pressed together as they absorbed each other's scent. Their battle escalated. Afterwards, the sound of fabric being torn could be heard. Of course, it was Tongning's clothes that were torn. Of course, there were times when she wanted to take the initiative. But this was the moment when a woman's strength was compared to a man's. The couple fell onto the bed as Tongning straddled Emoting's body. She wanted to tear his shirt apart, but she needed Emoting's help. Tongning was stunned for a moment as she looked at Emoting in the dark. She then leaned over and began absorbing his energy and nutrients. Their bodies intertwined, their bodies collided, and their passionate kisses caused the couple to lose control a few times. In fact, Emoting almost left marks on Tongning's body. But in the end, all the energy was concentrated elsewhere, allowing the couple to experience extreme pleasure. After their passionate session, the bedroom was filled with an ambiguous atmosphere. Emoting carried Tongning in his arms out of habit as he examined her body. Only after confirming he hadn't left any marks did he relax. After all, Tongning still had work to do. Tongning rested her head on Emoting's abdomen as she faced Emoting with her eyes closed. The erosive feeling had already seeped into her bones. "Tired? You're more tired," Tongning said with a double meaning. Mo Ting chuckled as he gently stroked Tongning's hair. He then led her to the bathroom to wash up. Tongning lay in the bathtub, enjoying Mo Ting's care as she rested her head on his chest. Did Longjie find you in the end? Tongning was silent for a moment before she finally responded. But even if you didn't remind me, I wouldn't have gone easy on Gabby. To prevent him from causing an unmanageable situation during the runway show, I asked Longjie to tamper with the soles of his shoes. This was also the reason why Gabby looked so unnatural on the runway several times. Compared to giving me a push, he was more worried about his shoes and falling on stage. So he had to make sure he didn't embarrass himself, so he placed his attention on his shoes. Mo Ting smiled as he placed a kiss on Tongning's forehead. Sure enough, this little woman never disappoints him. But you probably don't know yet, Lanshi has decided to remove Nziheo from his position as manager. Chapter 191. Tongning propped herself up and looked at Mo Ting. When did this happen? Longjie told me that before your show, she overheard Nziheo on the phone with Chung Tian. Mo Ting stood up from the water, put on a large bathrobe, wrapped Tongning in it, and carried her out of the bathroom. Tongning sat on the bed. Her heart was suddenly filled with an indescribable feeling. Although she hadn't spent much time with Nziheo, he had indeed put in a lot of effort for her. Apart from Mo Ting, no one was more suitable to be her manager. In reality, she had already treated Nziheo like a friend. Since he was a friend, if he was hurt, she wouldn't feel good. What are you thinking about? Even if, in the end, Nziheo can no longer be my manager, I don't want him to be treated like this by Lan Shi. No anger can compare to being bullied by a slut. Plus, did you think Lan Shi would let Nziheo go so easily? I don't want Nziheo to leave Chung Tian from a top manager to a useless person. Tongning had reason to believe that Lan Shi was capable of doing something like this. He helped me in the past, so I can't let him end up like this. However, Tongning knew deep down that since Lan Shi had already removed Nziheo from his position as manager, it meant, no matter how much she struggled, she was going to lose Nziheo as her manager. Perhaps. Nziheo was well aware of this. Inside the Luofu Hotel, Nziheo listed out all the recent invitations, current contracts and completed work. He then explained to Longjie what stage Tongning was currently at, what she should avoid and how she should use her connections. Longjie lay on the sofa listening to all this. Her heart was filled with discomfort. Nziheo had already planned out Tongning's future path. According to his current progress, in less than half a year, Tongning would become a supermodel. She would be on par with Star King's models. I've said so much, did you hear it all? Nziheo asked as he knocked on Longjie's forehead. Longjie lifted her head and looked into Nziheo's eyes. She had never thought his eyes were so beautiful. They sparkled like they were glowing. Must you go? Luo Hao said a bunch of nonsense, but there is one thing I can't refute. I am Chung Tian's manager, so I must follow Lan Shi's arrangements. As Nziheo spoke, his eyes were filled with helplessness and pain. After Yin Xian's passing, Nziheo had never met another person that could ignite his passion for his career. He originally wanted to accompany Tongning to the end, but it seemed that was no longer possible. You haven't told Tongning about your departure, have you? The new manager is already on her way. After I've briefed you, she will be returning to Beijing. Longjie took a deep breath as she tugged on the tassels hanging from the sofa, because Lan Shi's method was as disgusting as swallowing a fly. Can't you just stay? In reality, Longjie could see the difference between her and Nziheo. He was able to handle all of Tongning's invitations and contracts in an orderly manner. He was able to handle all kinds of dinners, interviews and languages. Most importantly, he was a good person. After hearing Longjie's words, Nziheo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Take good care of Tongning. After you return to Chung Tian, President Lan will definitely think of a way to deal with you. I have nothing to be afraid of. After speaking, Nziheo stood up from the sofa and grabbed his jacket and luggage. If you can't handle these things, I'll leave them to President Mo. Longjie really wanted to hold on to Nziheo, but she didn't know what to do. All she could do was wait for Nziheo to leave before giving Tongning a phone call. Hello. Longjia? Tongning, Zihao has left. He is heading to the airport to return to Beijing, Longjia explained anxiously. Tongning sat up in bed. Her originally hazy eyes suddenly became extremely clear. She then gave Zihao a phone call, but he did not pick up. Tongning had no choice but to send Zihao a message. I won't object to you returning to Beijing today. But if I find out that you have been humiliated and tortured by Lan Shi, I won't let it go. Also, Lan Shi has no right to step all over you. No one can. After seeing Tongning's message, Zihao let out a gentle laugh. Actually, after seeing Tongning say this, he felt everything was worth it to have a friend like her. In reality, he was reluctant. Mo Ting was awoken by Tongning's slight movements. He sat up and stared at her in a daze. Knowing she was in a bad mood, he got up and prepared a glass of warm water for her. Ting. I can't stand to see a friend suffer. Mo Ting sat cross-legged on the bed and wrapped his arms around her, comforting her. It's not like you won't see her again. But Lan Shi definitely won't let it go. After hearing this, Mo Ting placed his arm around Tongning's shoulder and said gently, I'm sure he knows what he wants. Even if Lan Shi makes things difficult for him, and he can no longer be a manager. He studied directing in the past and has many award-winning works under his belt. Did you think he wouldn't have a way out? I simply hate Lan Shi for suppressing me. That won't happen. As Mo Ting said these words, his obsidian-like eyes contained a deeper meaning between a married couple. Tongning immediately understood what he meant. If Lan Shi dared to lay a hand on Zihao, she would definitely be the one to suffer. But, even though Zihao's matter would have a perfect ending, she would no longer have a manager. Plus, she had made a name for herself with the help of JK. Her reputation was currently on the rise, and she had a lot of work to do. Was she really going to use the new manager that Lan Shi sent over? It was likely that Lan Shi would send over a piece of trash that would only listen to her. No one could stop Zihao from returning to Beijing. As soon as he entered Chengtian on his own, the staff all pointed and gossiped about him. Not because of anything else, but because the recording of his phone call with Lan Shi was still on the top search engine. Lan Shi turned around from her office chair and threw a slap across Zihao's face. Do you know why I hit you? Do you know how much criticism you've caused Chengtian Entertainment to suffer? Lan Shi questioned sharply, and Zihao did not refute, nor did he retaliate. He no longer had any feelings towards Lan Shi. Anger, hatred and everything else were all buried deep in his heart. He was ready to seal them away. I don't care what you do, go and explain yourself. Otherwise, Zihao, don't blame me for doing something even worse to you. For example? And Zihao asked in a mocking tone. If you cause the company to suffer a loss, then it will be your fault. Do you want to lose everything before leaving? Or, do you want me to expose the fact that Yin Xian was a kept woman before she became famous? Chapter 192. After hearing this, Zihao's eyes grew wide and filled with anger. He grabbed Lan Shi and asked through gritted teeth, Yin Xian has already passed away. How could you be so ruthless that you wouldn't even let a dead person go? If you can't even care about the living, how could you care about the dead? Lan Shi scoffed as her eyes became misty. And Zihao, we have been friends for many years, we are friends. Yet, you are helping Tongning? What benefits did Tongning give you? Is it worth it for you to throw away our friendship for so many years? Tongning has never given me any benefits. Unlike you, she doesn't give me fame and money. But, Lan Shi, in front of Tongning, I feel like I am living a normal life. At least, she isn't like you, constantly threatening me. After speaking, Zihao loosened his grip and sneered. So don't mention the word friend to me, it makes me feel disgusted. After being pushed away, Lan Shi felt a heavy blow to her heart. I may make you feel disgusted, but don't you think about how difficult my life is? Tongning's life is much more difficult than yours. At least you haven't come across a boss more vicious than you, but she has. Zihao saw Lan Shi did not respond, so he decided not to continue arguing with her. I can resign and leave Chengtian, but if you want me to help you clear the headlines, that is impossible. If you want to see Yin Xian being scolded by the netizens after her death, you can give it a try. And Zihao looked at Lan Shi and stared at her. It wasn't easy for him to resist the urge to hit her. In the end, he nodded his head. Okay, I'll fulfill your wish. What do you want me to do? Hold a press conference to clarify that this incident had nothing to do with me, and that you were the one who created this recording. And Zihao looked at Lan Shi's back helplessly. Didn't she want him to leave Qingtian with his reputation in tatters? Since he had already gotten to this point, what difference did it make whether he took the blame or not? I promise, and Zihao replied straightforwardly. But before he turned to leave, he added, you better not regret this. Lan Shi did not turn around. She maintained her pride as a CEO as she scoffed mockingly. She already had Yin Xian's weakness in her hands. What else could Zihao do? After Zihao left the office, he did not tell anyone about his conversation with Lan Shi. He simply headed to Yin Xian's grave on his own, and sat in front of her tombstone for an entire day. Yin Xian, why didn't you take me with you back then? At this moment, it was already nighttime in the UK. Tongning had not received any news regarding Zihao and was extremely anxious. It seemed there was nothing Lu Che could do to help with Cheng Tian's family matters. Above all, Hairui already had enough to deal with. After Zihao left, although Long Jie was busy as usual, there were some things that required a lot of effort. Especially when it came to English, there were a lot of technical terms that she couldn't understand. Tongning. Let me see. Tongning picked up the laptop in her hands and looked at the comments Zihao had already made. This is an invalid contract, it has already been rejected. Why didn't you say so earlier? I even spent a few hours translating it. After dealing with Hairui's matters, Mo Ting came out of the study room. Seeing the worried expressions on the two women's faces, he casually took the laptop from Tongning's hands. But Tongning was afraid he would be like this, so her mood became even worse. After Mo Ting finished looking through all of Tongning's emails, he placed the tasks that she needed to complete at the top of his list. Because of JK's success, Tongning might need to stay in the UK for a period of time. She had received a few more master-level runway offers. Ting, I want to return to Beijing. Tongning asked for Mo Ting's opinion. Mo Ting knew she was worried about her friend. Before Zihao's matter was resolved, there was no way she could calm down and work. So he nodded his head calmly. I'll get someone to book you a plane ticket and help you postpone your work until 2 days later. Tongning gently nodded her head as her heart skipped a beat. She knew, no matter what, Mo Ting would always stand by her side and support her every decision. At this time, the new manager sent by Lan Shi gave Long Jie a phone call. Long Jie reluctantly picked up the phone. In the end, the manager was even angrier than she was as she scolded. As an assistant, what are you trying to do by not letting a model stay in the room arranged by the agency? Where are you right now? It's already the middle of the night. Why haven't you returned to the hotel? Are you crazy? Thinking about it, the manager must have gone to the hotel empty-handed. Long Jie wanted to refute, but she realized she couldn't say a word. All she could do was stare at Tongning in a daze, speechless. Are you mute? Who told you to speak? Tongning suddenly snatched the phone out of Long Jie's hands and said, You have been fired. Who are you? How dare you fire me? Tongning. The manager thought it was Long Jie, so as soon as she heard Tongning's name, her attitude changed as she spoke in a flattering tone. I'm sorry, Ning Jie, I couldn't find you guys, so I got a little anxious. I'm sorry, you just happened to insult my assistant, so I'd like to ask you to not appear in front of me. If Lan Shi asks, you can answer her that even if a bag of trash is disguised as a manager, she is still trash. After speaking, Tongning hung up the phone and handed it back to Long Jie. This time, Tongning and the other two set off that very night. With the addition of JK's popularity, Tongning was even more careful than before. So, as the sports car drove out of the manor, the reporter from Huarong Studio did not manage to get a clear photo. In fact, he couldn't even get a clear shot of the back of the car. It wasn't until she boarded the plane that Tongning found out Luo Hao had released news about her and a male model in Beijing. It turned out, something like this had actually happened. Everyone had been hiding it from her. Mo Ting had even spent a fortune to keep Lan Shi on the hottest search rankings. There's no need to do this. Really. I can't stand by and watch you suffer like this. Mo Ting replied in seriousness as he hugged her. Tongning had nothing to say. She simply held onto Mo Ting's hand and gently placed a kiss on the back of it. The reporter from Huarong Studio had once again missed his chance to take photos. But, did that mean he wouldn't be able to get a photo? After almost 10 hours of flight time, Tongning and Long Jie quietly stepped out of the airport. Not long after, they saw a video announcement. Chung Tian Entertainments in Zihao was about to hold a press conference. Tongning knew Lan Shi wanted in Zihao to be the scapegoat, because she had endured this feeling before. But Lan Shi never expected Shi Tongning would return. Chapter 193. If N Zihao admitted that he fabricated the recording, it would mean that the truth about Tongning's innocence could be overturned. In other words, N Zihao's actions were a little suspicious. He was trying to cover up the truth. He was trying to cover up Tongning's messy private life and the fact that she was involved with multiple men. In reality, this was a difficult problem for N Zihao. In this decision, he didn't care if he got hurt, but he didn't want to hurt a dead lover and a living friend. Tongning quietly returned to Beijing and contacted all her friends that could help her. It wasn't that she was afraid of fighting with Lan Shi. She simply wanted to help N Zihao find the best way out. Tongning, I think you are being overly worried about Zihao. He is, after all, a top manager and has his own way of dealing with things. He won't just sit there and wait to be threatened by Lan Shi. Long Jie tried to comfort Tongning on the way to Qingtian. What can you change by going to Qingtian? I'm not going to look for Lan Shi, Tongning replied calmly. I'm going to wait for N Zihao. Do you have a better way to contact him right now? Long Jie shook her head. N Zihao had never picked up any phone calls or contacted anyone. Since he was going to hold a press conference in the lobby of Qingtian, he would definitely be there early. Wait, Long Jie, can you ask around for the location of Yin Xian's grave? Long Jie nodded her head. She was quite good at asking around for information. A moment later, she told Lu Che that they were heading straight to the grave. After picking them up from the airport, Lu Che was assigned by Mo Ting to be Tongning and Long Jie's chauffeur. As soon as the two met, they looked at each other awkwardly. Long Jie had previously suggested living together, although Lu Che didn't understand in the end. Long Jie's heart was in turmoil, especially now that Lu Che was using his identity as her fiancé to act as their chauffeur. The awkwardness in her heart once again multiplied. As it was a cloudy and foggy day, Tongning wrapped herself in a trench coat and entered the grave. As expected, she found N Zihao standing in front of Yin Xian's grave. As their eyes met, N Zihao was a little surprised as he quickly stood up. Why are you back? I still have a lot of work to do in London. You know I have a lot of work, so why did you leave so quickly? Tongning glared at N Zihao before placing the bouquet of white roses she bought at the entrance of the cemetery in front of Yin Xian's tombstone. Looking at the young and beautiful figure on the tombstone, Tongning couldn't help but place her hands together as a sign of respect towards the deceased. You've heard about what happened this afternoon. Yes. I suddenly understand why Mo Ting always says the same thing to me. You obviously have a perfect plan. Why do you always choose a path that hurts you? Now, I can understand how he feels because I also want to ask you the same question. Did you come back because you didn't want to be implicated, or do you think I'm still afraid of Lan Shi? I simply don't want my friend to experience the pain that I once experienced. Tongning, have you ever felt despair? And Zihao lowered his head and reached out to touch the portrait on the stone tablet. Even though his lover had been gone for so many years, he still couldn't let go. Of course. 3 months ago, on the eve of our wedding, I discovered my fiancé cheating on me with another woman in front of my bed. But the next day, I picked Mo Ting up at the Civil Affairs office. Tongning replied. But even without Mo Ting, I wouldn't have given up on my right to love. Why should I? But I'm glad I met Mo Ting. Giving my love to him is worth it. Don't you think it's hard? Thinking about one person year after year and living the same life, That's what I call hard. After speaking, Tongning pulled out a business card from her handbag. I know you don't need any of these things, but I simply want to say, I'm giving you a chance to start afresh. At the press conference this afternoon, no matter what decision you make, I will support you. But she better not give me a chance to retaliate. If she does, I will definitely tear her apart. After speaking, Tongning turned and left the cemetery, leaving Nziheo alone in front of the tombstone to think. Tongning had said that even if she had been in despair, she would never give up on loving him. Nziheo thought about this sentence over and over again. Suddenly, he felt like everything else wasn't as important anymore. So he smiled as he looked down at the portrait on the tombstone and said, Yun Xian, perhaps I've really sealed myself away for too long. Of course, a dead person's reputation was important, but it was all in the past. A living person was more important. 3 days after the press conference, Chengtian Entertainment's lobby was already filled with reporters. Nziheo had something to say about Chengtian's recent scandal. On the eve of the press conference, Lanqi stood to one side and chatted with Luo Hao as she watched the staff prepare the venue. You should be careful of Nziheo. He is, after all, a top manager. Back when the three of us were still together, he was always like this. On the surface, he seemed nonchalant, but in reality, he had already taken care of everything behind the scenes. He didn't need anyone to worry about him. Lanqi crossed her arms as she turned to look at Luo Hao and scoffed. But no matter how strong he is, he still has one weakness he can't get rid of, Yun Xian. For the sake of Yun Xian, there's nothing he wouldn't do. Did you think he would betray his true love for Tongning? Lanqi's confidence had always come from the bottom of her heart. But Luo Hao never had high hopes for her. Lanqi's arrogance often made her neglect a lot of things. Change. Nothing lasts forever, and people change. But Luo Hao did not say a word because Lanqi wouldn't listen. Only after suffering would she understand the power of change. 3:15 p.m. Nziheo walked into Chengtian dressed in a gray suit. He approached Lanqi and Luo Hao first and said to Lanqi, Don't forget what you promised me. Lanqi smiled and nodded. I will return all the information to you. Hearing this, Nziheo looked at Luo Hao with an inquisitive gaze. Out of the three of us, in the end, you still have the last laugh. Luo Hao lifted his chin and simply said, The person I want to deal with is Tongning. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for standing on the wrong side. If you can't find a job in the future, you can let me know. Nziheo let out a gentle laugh. All of a sudden, it had been a long time since Lanqi had seen this kind of clean smile where he let go of everything. She simply felt the Nziheo at this moment was a little different. However, before she had time to think back, Nziheo had already disappeared from their line of sight and headed towards the stage. Did they want him to admit to faking the recording? The show was about to begin. Chapter 194. Amidst the snapping sounds of camera shutters, Nziheo calmly faced the media. The corners of his lips gently curved upwards as he looked at them with an ambiguous smile. The last time he faced such a grand scene was many years ago when Yun Xian accepted the VL Global Spokesperson Award. Today he was doing this for himself, so he could be reborn. The time was 3:20 p.m. The press conference officially began. Chengtian's staff maintained order as they were given 15 minutes for the media to ask questions. Afterwards, Lanqi walked onto the stage and scanned her eyes across the room. She then spoke. Friends from the media, you have all worked hard. In response to the recent headlines and the false information that Chengtian has released, we will give everyone a complete explanation. The reason why Chengtian has gotten to where it is today is because of our abilities and hard work. However, recently, due to a certain reason, one of our models has been mysteriously suppressed. Now, I have been dragged into this mess for no reason. From the start, I have not stepped out to make a statement. Because I believe in justice and I also believe that evil will eventually come to an end. As Lanqi spoke, Nziheo was standing beside her. For a moment, he really wanted to ask Lanqi, how could she have the nerve to say something like this? Don't you feel humiliated at all? Because of Lanqi's words, she had unintentionally pushed all of Cheng Tian's troubles onto Tongning. She was obviously trying to tell everyone that Cheng Tian had been developing steadily, but because of Tongning's appearance, Cheng Tian had been dragged into a whirlpool of troubles. Next, we would like to invite our top manager, Mr. Nziheo, to give an explanation. I'm sure he will be able to give everyone a satisfactory answer regarding the recording of the recent headlines. After speaking, Lan Shi took a step back. However, at this time, one of the media asked a question. President Lan, I think I understand what you are trying to say. Are you implying that the reason Cheng Tian is in so much trouble is because of the model that you recently signed, Tongning? Her words were suddenly pointed out. Everyone looked at the reporter and the stunned Lan Shi. Originally, he thought she would at least say a few words and let the situation continue to be ambiguous. After all, Tongning was a newly signed model, and they had previously acted like they were welcoming a superstar. If they were to suddenly tear each other apart, wouldn't the scene be a little too ugly? However, Lan Shi did not explain or say anything. She simply smiled mysteriously. Everyone understood what he meant, so why did he have to make it so obvious? Afterwards, Lan Shi turned her dark gaze towards Nziheo. Because apart from getting rid of Nziheo, Lan Shi's main goal today was to attack Tongning. Taking advantage of the fact that Tongning was still overseas and had no way to retaliate, she wanted to catch her off guard. Don't think that just because you successfully walked JK's show, you would be able to soar into the sky. No, there was no such thing as a bargain in this world. From Lan Shi's reaction, the media had already guessed the purpose of today's press conference. It was obvious, they wanted to destroy Tongning. The industry had already sensed an internal conflict in Cheng Tian. So, today no matter what Lan Shi said, she was going to slander Tongning. Nziheo. Lan Shi reminded Nziheo. Her voice was deep and threatening. After hearing this, Nziheo nodded his head before he turned back to face the media. Today, I want to give everyone an explanation. Regarding the recording on the headlines, the truth is, before I reveal this secret, let me say something else. Just as Nziheo got to the crux of the matter, he suddenly changed the topic and smiled at everyone. I've been in this industry for so many years. I've gone from being a nameless assistant to where I am today. I can't even remember how many times I've stood on a stage like this. I want to say something that even makes me feel disgusted. Before I tell everyone the truth, I want to mention someone that everyone has already forgotten. Yin Xian. The media looked at each other, unsure why Nziheo would suddenly mention Yin Xian's name. Of course, the person with the worst expression was Lan Shi. She suddenly realized Nziheo was uncontrollable and made her feel uneasy. As everyone knows, Yin Xian died in a car accident. That day we had a huge argument. Yin Xian drove over the speed limit and crashed into a guardrail, killing one and injuring the other. At that time, Cheng Tian kept the information under wraps. I was naive enough to think they were doing it for my own good. But, today I finally understand the reason they kept the information under wraps was because they had a guilty conscience. Nziheo, do you know what you're saying? Lan Shi suddenly asked as she grabbed onto Nziheo's arm. Nziheo let out a gentle laugh as he asked in a low voice. Didn't you want me to reveal the truth? I will do as you wish, don't worry. After speaking, he freed himself from Lan Shi's grip and continued to explain. Because Cheng Tian Entertainment single-handedly caused Yin Xian's death. First, it was our beloved President Lan who hid in the dark and spied on Yin Xian and I. Then it was my two good friends, Yang Jing and Luo Hao, who leaked the information to the media. In the end, she got into a car accident. Isn't it very exciting? The reporters obviously didn't expect Nziheo to say something like this. They didn't expect him to suddenly reveal something that had happened many years ago. Lan Shi suddenly understood why Nziheo had appeared on stage today. She immediately gestured for Luo Hao to find someone to escort him off the stage. However, Nziheo continued to speak. Do you know what the reason is? It's because of jealousy. Cheng Tian's CEO is jealous of the models under her management, so she has thought of many ways to control them. Yin Xian from many years ago was one. And Tongning, who is currently gaining momentum, is another. The incident with Yun Xian has been in the past for too long, so long that I've already forgotten about her methods. But Tongming, that recording is the best proof, because it is the real thing. I still have the original recording on my phone. Luo Hao and his bodyguard stepped onto the stage to forcefully escort Zihao out of the venue. In fact, they even resorted to violence by using force in front of the media, although Zihao wasn't easily injured. Luo Hao added more people. Lan Shi pretended to be calm, and was about to announce the end of the press conference, but just as everyone was nervously watching the scene unfold before their eyes, a tall figure appeared at the entrance of Cheng Tian. She was originally supposed to be in London. Chapter 195. Tongming. Isn't that Tongming? Why is she back? Oh God. Tongming has also been dragged into this. This is going to be a good show. This is like the textbook version of a civil war. The media turned to Tongming and snapped furiously. At a time like this, at such an exciting time, Tongming had suddenly returned. This model that tore apart every company she went to. She obviously kept a low profile, but wherever she was, there would always be a battlefield. Lan Shi watched as Tongming approached the podium. She immediately turned to Luo Hao and gestured for him to control the situation, and not allow the situation to escalate. So, Cheng Tian's security immediately headed towards Tongming. However, to everyone's surprise, Tongming also brought bodyguards with her. Take note, they were professional bodyguards. The security couldn't act rashly. All they could do was watch as Tongming approached the podium. Not too long ago, the two women were so close that they defeated Yang Jing. Yet in such a short period of time, they had already turned into enemies. In fact, their relationship had worsened to such an ugly degree. Why are you back? Weren't you in London? If I didn't come back, I would have been turned into ashes and lost all my reputation. Tongming removed her sunglasses and looked directly at Lan Shi. Of course, there was a difference in height between the two women. Tongming usually looked down at women. Lan Shi looked at Tongming with hatred in her eyes. At this moment, the situation was no longer in her control. She originally thought that if Tongming personally spoke, she would have the strength to refute her. However, Tongming simply instructed her bodyguards to deal with the security guards that were holding Zihao back. She then said to Zihao, "Say what you want to say and do what you want to do." Today I am simply here to protect my friend," Tongming said in a serious tone. "Zihao, tell me all your grievances. Once you tell me, you will be free." Zihao looked at Tongming, at this unbelievable woman. Back at Hai, she was willing to risk her image and slap Li Danny and her manager for the sake of Long Jie's assistant. Now for him, she had come all the way from London to stand in front of him and build a wall of safety for him. Zihao suddenly felt inspired as he lifted his head and faced the media. At the same time, he pulled out his phone and played the original recording on it. The recording incident is indeed real. I will send this recording for examination later. As for the part about our CEO being jealous of our models, I'm sure everyone is aware of the previous incident with Ling Feng. In order to control Tongming, President Lan suggested that Tongming have dinner with Ling Feng on the eve of the commercial shoot. However, Tongming did not agree, so a series of troubles followed. Afterwards, Lan Shi began to suppress Tongming. I'm sure everyone has heard that all of Tongming's resources were taken over by Li Danny and Hua Yuan. However, Tongming continued to rely on her own outstanding performance in LM to regain everyone's recognition. Following on was Tongming's interview on Feng Kai. In order to stop Tongming, Lan Shi actually kidnapped Tongming's assistant, Long Man's grandfather. So, that's how Tongming publicly announced that she wanted him back. Finally, there was the JK stalking incident. You can't imagine that the CEO of a company would actually hire a paparazzi and a male model to put on a show to slander her own model's innocence. Above is everything that Lan Shi has done to Tongming since she became a signed model. As her manager, I have seen everything with my own eyes. I know exactly what she has done. As soon as Zihao's words left his mouth, the reporters were in an uproar. Chungtian Entertainment had never experienced such a frightening scandal. Who would have thought their internal strife would be so fierce? And there would be so many undercurrents brewing behind the scenes. Lan Shi looked at the uncontrollable situation and suddenly, she took a few steps back. All of these incidents had traces that could be traced back to. There was nothing she could say to refute. It wouldn't be able to withstand any digging. No one expected Nziheo would throw caution to the wind and reveal everything. So Lan Shi held back her anger and said to Nziheo, "Do you not want to stay in the industry anymore? Nziheo, are you tired of living? Did you think I would care about something like this?" Nziheo asked coldly. "From the moment you plotted to kill Yin Xian, from the moment you plotted to hurt Tongning, I already thought to myself, Lan Shi, one day, I will make you pay the price. The industry? Do you think I care about that?" Lan Shi glared at Nziheo with hatred. Her eyes were red as tears rolled down her cheeks. At this time, the media was also in an uproar. Oh my god, if what Nziheo said is the truth, then Lan Shi and Chungtian Entertainment are too scary. Isn't that right? Murder and kidnapping. I always thought Chungtian Entertainment, a second-rate agency in the modeling industry, wouldn't be so dirty. It turns out, I was too inexperienced. I don't dare to talk about what happened to Yin Xian, but I've heard quite a bit about what happened to Tongning. The industry has been saying that Tongning is being suppressed, but Tongning isn't as easy to bully as Yin Xian. None of this is true. Lan Shi heard the ridicule and discussion from the media and suddenly yelled, "Nziheo, you've said so much, but do you really have any evidence? If you don't have any, then you will pay a heavy price for slandering me today. I know everything that happened today was planned by you and Tongning. You did it all to bring me down." Everyone looked at Lan Shi like they were watching a good show. Compared to everything Nziheo had said, Lan Shi's words were obviously an excuse and an attempt to frame him. "Lan Shi, do you really want evidence?" Nziheo looked at Lan Shi through the bodyguards with a look of mockery and sadness. Lan Shi was speechless. All of a sudden, she was speechless. If she said she really wanted evidence, then millions of netizens would take the initiative to search for it for Nziheo. When that time came, she would be beyond redemption. "Did you know? How much I hoped that you had nothing to do with Yin Xian. How much I hoped that you had simply lost your mind for a moment. But, seeing how much you tried to slander Tongning, I realized I could no longer remain silent. Tongning simply wants to be a good model. She has never wanted to go against you. But you have repeatedly hurt her and hurt the people around her. You are even willing to sacrifice me to achieve your goal. So I hereby announce, I am leaving Chungtian Entertainment." Chapter 196. Nziheo is quitting. A company like this, of course she is quitting. Is she waiting to die? What will happen to Tongning if Nziheo quits? Tongning is still a model for Chungtian. Hearing Nziheo was quitting, the media began to whisper amongst themselves. Actually, this was understandable because Nziheo had already exposed all of Chungtian's secrets. Regardless of whether these things were the truth or not, for Chungtian, it was bound to be a huge blow. Because no matter what Nziheo said, it would become a stain on Chungtian Entertainment that could never be erased. Their opponents would continue to dig up information until Lan Shi was completely destroyed. Since Nziheo and Lan Shi had already fallen out to such an extent, there was no way they could continue working together. "Nziheo, did you think after leaving Chungtian, anyone would still want you? You disregarded the company's interests and exposed our secrets. Did you think you could continue to survive in this industry?" Lan Shi questioned angrily. Her voice was sharp and trembling. It was harsh and unpleasant to the ears. "No one will want you, no one." Lan Shi yelled at Nziheo through the bodyguards. But so what? Nziheo's expression had never been so calm before. The struggle and pain of the past was finally over. So Nziheo simply smiled and said to Lan Shi, "Since I've decided to quit Chungtian Entertainment, I've never expected to be a manager again." "Lan Shi, you've spent your entire life trying to control other people's lives. Yet, you've failed to control anyone. In the end, you've even thrown yourself away. And Ziheo's voice was gentle and steady, because from the moment he announced he was quitting Chungtian Entertainment, he had already begun his new life. In the end, An Ziheo turned to face the media once again and bowed deeply. He then looked at Tongning and said, Tongning is truly a great woman. At least, to me she is great enough. She is someone that can hold on to her own identity and remain true to herself despite being in the busy industry. She can never be the crazy woman that Lan Shi and the paparazzi are talking about. Tongning loves to walk on the runway because she understands it is her destiny. Originally, she wanted to use Chungtian as a platform to fulfill her dreams, but now, all she has received is endless pain from Lan Shi. Towards Lan Shi, I really have nothing to say. I only have one thing to ask everyone. Chungtian has hurt Tongning more than it has helped her. This is the truth. From now on, whenever Chungtian reports something related to Tongning, I hope everyone does not believe it and cannot believe it. Finally, An Ziheo looked at Tongning and asked, What's your choice? She had mentioned before that she was simply here to help a friend. So she replied, I still need to return to London. Can't you hurry up? The reporters below the stage burst into laughter as they discovered Tongning's attitude. She was indeed a person that didn't like to cause trouble. If she had something to say, she would do it. At a time like this, she did not even think about stepping on Lan Shi. It was clear to see that her magnanimity was indeed worthy of respect. In such a situation, she was actually able to stay out of it completely. It could be seen that she really wanted others to ignore her existence. At this moment, all she wanted to do was help An Ziheo find himself. As for the debt between her and Lan Shi, there was still time to settle. An Ziheo, you can't leave. You are breaching the contract. Don't forget, your penalty is 3 times the original amount. Lan Shi's arrogance made her think that after An Ziheo left Chungtian, he would be completely smelly and would no longer be able to survive in the industry. Perhaps An Ziheo could no longer be anyone's manager. But that didn't mean An Ziheo's life was over. An Ziheo did not say a word. Not long after, a few men dressed in black entered Chungtian's lobby. They were a few stylishly dressed foreign men. From the looks of their bodies, they were probably bodyguards. Afterwards, a slightly chubby middle-aged man approached the 4 bodyguards and said to Lan Shi with a big smile, Actually, President Lan, I really want to thank you. Ziheo is my proudest student. I have long wanted him to go to the US to develop his career. He has a talent for drama, so I want him to become a director in the US and enter Hollywood in the future. As for your modeling agency, you can have fun on your own. So this was An Ziheo's decision. Tongning finally let out a sigh of relief. Hey, do you guys recognize who he is? A sharp-eyed reporter immediately recognized the middle-aged man and let out a scream. It's the famous director, Zhu Huanshan. I never thought. Not only did An Ziheo do well as a manager, he also has other talents. Hasn't Chungtian Entertainment lost a lot of face this time? Lan Shi originally thought An Ziheo would starve to death after leaving. In the end, he caught the eye of a famous director and was snatched away by him. What a great slap to the face. I really hope there is a better agency that can snatch Tongning away too. Hairui Entertainment. Mo Ting was sitting in his office looking at the entertainment news. Seeing that Tongning had actually gone to act as a human wall, he couldn't help but reveal a subtle smile. The internet was already in an uproar as people started leaving comments on Tongning's fan club, telling her to quickly find a new agency. She couldn't continue working with Chungtian Entertainment. But Tongning actually felt this was the best time to work with them. With Lan Shi's every move being monitored, the restrictions placed on her would be a lot looser. Mo Ting understood what Tongning was thinking, but it didn't stop him from rejoicing. Even though Tongning didn't leave Chungtian with An Ziheo, it didn't mean she didn't have any plans. Especially when the reporter couldn't help but say that he hoped Tongning would find a better agency. In reality, Mo Ting already had a plan in mind. Of course, this didn't stop Mo Ting from being happy for An Ziheo. Although he could no longer be a manager, he believed An Ziheo entering a new field was a new beginning. Perhaps they would have a chance to work together again in the future. Most importantly, the task of helping Tongning look over her contract had once again returned to him. Tongning was always worried that he would get tired, but this would soon become normal. The lobby of Chengtian Entertainment was already in a mess, especially as Nziheo and Tongning prepared to leave Chengtian. Luo Hao watched as the two left under the watchful eyes of the media. But in his eyes, Tongning and Nziheo were stepping over Lan Shi's flesh and blood as they walked out the door. Did they think they could leave just like that? How could it be that easy? Everyone had forgotten about the artist's director standing in the corner. He was the most terrifying person in Chengtian. Chapter 197. Tongning, although I can no longer be your manager, the time I've spent as your manager has been an unforgettable experience. I am very happy and very lucky. As they left Chengtian, Nziheo stretched out his hand towards Tongning and waved it, gesturing for her to shake it. Tongning let out a gentle laugh as she held onto Nziheo's hand and tilted her head. To be honest, you are indeed an outstanding manager. If it wasn't for Lan Shi's scheme, I would never have let you go. Nziheo let go of Tongning's hand. For a moment, he was still unwilling to give up. I once thought I could accompany you to the end. At least, I thought I could help you become a supermodel. But it doesn't matter. Even if I don't take this position, there are plenty of people who are willing. Aren't you aware? You have a wife-slave at home. I am also a wife-slave, okay? Tongning retorted unwillingly. I will continue to pay attention to you. If you have any difficulties, give me a call. If one day you decide you don't want to be a model anymore and want to be an actress, you can come look for me. Perhaps that day will come. Tongning felt nothing was impossible. Okay, I need to go. Tongning, I know you didn't say anything today because you didn't want Lan Shi to come back and beg you. After all, you said you would make her kneel before you. But you need to pay attention to Luo Hao. He is more patient than Yang Jing and Lan Shi. Tongning smiled mysteriously. Of course she wasn't Lan Shi. She was able to keep her guard up. So, Nziheo had nothing to worry about. After all, she still had Emoting by her side. Hurry up and go. I still need to go back and accompany my wife-slave. Nziheo's lips curved upwards as he gently hugged Tongning. Finally, under Tongning and Longjie's blessings, he set off again. In reality, Nziheo had a feeling that even if Lan Shi hadn't set him up, he wouldn't have been able to watch Tongning walk down the path of a supermodel. Because there was someone else that was more than willing to do it. And the good Tongning deserved the best treatment. Let's go, Tongning. It's time for us to head to the airport. Longjie reminded Tongning that her work in London was not over yet. They had already applied for time off, so they couldn't keep the photographers and models waiting for her. I want to go see Emoting. Do you miss him? Longjie winked at Tongning. Tongning nodded her head without hiding anything. Let's go. Longjie happily agreed as she drove Tongning to Hai Rue Entertainment. However, along the way, all she heard on the radio was about Chengtian's press conference. The discussions repeatedly revolved around her, Lan Shi and Nziheo. In fact, the discussions were all one-sided. This time, Lan Shi was in big trouble. Today's press conference was a great way to vent our anger. Otherwise, who knows how much more dirty water Lan Shi would have thrown at us. Tongning thought about how Lan Shi was already on the verge of collapsing as they left the venue. Her expression naturally turned cold. A person like Lan Shi would never admit that she was wrong. She simply believed that she had lost to timing and luck. Where is Lan Shi now? Haha, you don't know? After we left, the reporters surrounded Lan Shi. In the end, there was a small accident and Lan Shi was hit by a camera. She is now in the hospital, Longjie laughed. So, are you still angry? Tongning suddenly asked Longjie. It sounded a little strange, but... After a short pause, Longjie came to her senses. She understood Tongning was doing this to avenge her for kneeling to Hai Yi. I haven't been angry for a long time. Who am I? Do you think a person that has nothing to do with me is worth my anger? Tongning lifted her head and glanced at Longjie. She knew Longjie was naturally optimistic, so she did not say anything else. As long as Longjie could make it to the hospital, she would feel better. But thinking about Lu Che's injured knee, Tongning couldn't help but remind. When you pass by a pharmacy, buy some medicine for Lu Che. That day, when he came to deliver your passport, he injured his knee. What? Long Jie was a little nervous as she quickly stepped on the brakes. Tongning glared at her as she restarted the car. In that case, I'll look for a pharmacy nearby. Tongning did not say a word. She looked at Long Jie as if to say, do as you see fit. Long Jie smiled awkwardly. She realized her reaction was a little too extreme. Originally, the atmosphere was relaxed and carefree. However, an anxious voice suddenly came from the radio. Host, can you help me contact Tongning? I need to talk to her, it's urgent. Not only Tongning, even the host thought it was a fan, so he comforted. I'm sorry, miss, a program like ours can't possibly invite Tongning. But I'm really in a hurry. She promised to save my life. Hearing this, the host was confused. He thought it was a crazy fan, so he disconnected the line and tried to ease the atmosphere before contacting the next listener. Of course, Tongning did not take the matter to heart. After all, she had a lot of fans and there were also a lot of fans that would share stories with her. Sometimes it was impossible to tell the truth from the lies. After a 40-minute car ride, Long Jie escorted Tongning to Hairue. At the same time, Long Jie anxiously followed behind Tongning with some medicine. Inside the elevator, Lu Che looked at Tongning in surprise as she stepped out of the elevator. Madam, why haven't you left yet? Isn't your flight at 4:30 p.m.? Where's Emoting? He's in the waiting room. Lu Che was holding some medicine in his hand when he realized he was going to hide it. But Tongning had already seen it. Is Emoting not feeling well? Tongning immediately furrowed her brows as she looked at him anxiously. Actually, it's not a big problem. He just gets a migraine from time to time. Why has he never mentioned it at home? Why does it rarely hurt? In that case, he definitely didn't tell you. As you know, he can't bear to do things like that. Lu Che laughed as he handed the tray to Tongning. In that case, I'll leave this to the madam. At this moment, Tongning had no other thoughts in her mind. She ran straight to the waiting room. Meanwhile, Long Jie and Lu Che, who were left behind, looked at each other awkwardly. Long Jie turned her face away and pretended to look at the rainbow in the sky. However, she still threw the medicine in her hand at Lu Che. Lu Che was confused. What is this? Didn't you hurt your knee? Lu Che continued to unpack the medicine. Looking at the medicine inside, he realized it didn't only contain medicine for external injuries, there were also medicines for colds, fevers, headaches and fever, as well as rheumatism. I accidentally bought too much. Take it as a reward for taking care of Tongning. But the big miss who thanked someone by treating them to medicine. Inside the waiting room, a figure was lying quietly on the black bed. He no longer had the majestic presence of a king. Instead, he was holding his head in his hands from the pain. Ting. Tongning hurried over. Chapter 198. Under the dim lighting, Emoting heard this familiar voice. He resisted the pain in his head and calmed his expression. He turned around and looked at Tongning. Shouldn't we board the plane? Perhaps, Emoting couldn't tell, but Tongning could hear every change in his voice. It was the pain he was suppressing. Tongning's throat felt like it was on fire. She was afraid that her words would sound like she was about to cry, so she put down the medicine in her hands and sat on the headboard. She then struggled to help Emoting's body up and pulled him into her embrace, wrapping her arms tightly around him. Take the medicine first. Emoting's attention was distracted and he began to panic, especially when Tongning's tears landed on his shoulder. He quickly turned around but Tongning held him back. Take your medicine. Emoting did not continue to struggle. He simply took the medicine and water. Tongning watched as he swallowed the medicine. She reached out her arms and hugged his head, gently rubbing it as she placed her lips against his hair. Emoting closed his eyes. At this time he no longer had the energy to explain. After resting for half an hour, the medicine finally took effect and Emoting gradually recovered. He struggled out of Tongning's embrace and turned to look at her. Tongning's eyes were still filled with tears as she looked at Emoting without saying a word. It only hurts occasionally, It's not that serious. I just had a checkup not long ago. I don't know. Tongning lowered her head as her tears fell onto Emo Ting's arm. Seeing you in so much pain made me anxious. I don't know what else I can do for you. Tongning wasn't a person that liked to cry. Whenever she came across a problem, she would face it calmly. Only when it came to Emo Ting would she react so strongly. Emo Ting pulled her into his embrace and hugged her tightly. His hand ran down her back as he comforted her. I'll lose my mind if I see you in pain. Hearing this, Emo Ting suddenly came to a realization. It turned out, keeping himself healthy was also a way to protect Tongning. After all, Tongning's tears didn't land on the back of his hand. Instead, they landed on his heart like a hammer. Emo Ting hugged her and waited for her to calm down. After quite some time, he finally said in a hoarse voice beside her ear, "Later, I'll ask Lu Che to arrange for you to go to the hospital for a checkup." Tongning did not say a word. She simply bit down hard on Emo Ting's neck. Emo Ting was already used to her venting in this way. As long as he caused her emotions to fluctuate, whether it was excitement or anger, she would respond in this way. Tongning bit down on the thin layer of skin, refusing to let go. Emo Ting let her do as she pleased. He smiled and hugged her tightly. "It's okay, I feel a lot better after taking the medicine." Tongning finally let out a sigh of relief. Her heart ached again. Emo Ting turned his head and looked at the alarm clock on the bedside table. He quickly said to Tongning, "I'll take you to the airport, otherwise it'll be too late." Tongning still didn't want to get up, but Emo Ting carried her off the bed. After tidying up a little, he led her out of the waiting room. Inside the office, Long Jie and Lu Che were still awkwardly staring at each other. As soon as they saw Tongning being carried out of the office, Long Jie immediately ran over. "What's wrong? What happened? Wasn't Big Boss sick? How did Tongning end up being the weak one? I'll take you to the airport now. Long Jie, take good care of Tongning." Long Jie didn't understand the situation in front of her, so all she could do was respond blankly. The group quickly boarded the car, but Tongning remained quiet the entire way. Emo Ting could tell she hadn't recovered from her earlier emotions. So, as they waited at a red light, he reached out his hand and patted her long hair to comfort her. Soon they arrived at the airport. To avoid being discovered by the media, Emo Ting parked the car in a secluded spot and gestured for Long Jie to come over immediately. Long Jie received Big Boss's signal and immediately got out of the car. She then pulled Tongning out. "Our work in London will end in 2 to 3 days. We can't drag it out any longer." Tongning did not say a word. Her expression was calm. As she stepped out of the car, she did not look at Emo Ting's expression. It seemed she was afraid she would regret it. However, as soon as they stepped into the airport, Tongning suddenly asked, "Long Jie, I'm still worried. What should I do?" Long Jie reacted for a moment. She was a little surprised, but she quickly smiled. "Tongning, you know better than I do. When a person is hesitating and doesn't choose the outcome they want, they will often regret it. For example, when the weather is about to change before you leave and you are hesitating to bring an umbrella, if you don't bring one, it will definitely rain. Or if you want to chase after someone, if you don't turn around right now, you may miss out on the moment he needs you the most." After hearing Long Jie's words, Tongning left the queue without hesitation and ran over to where she had just left the car. Luckily, because of the traffic, Emo Ting's car had not completely left the airport. Tongning ran over without hesitation, pulled open the car door and sat down in her original seat. Emo Ting was a little surprised. "Why did you come back?" "Tell Lu Che to immediately arrange for an examination. Before I see the results, I won't leave in peace," Tongning finally said in seriousness. "For you this is a small matter. But I've been worried about going overseas. Do you think it's still too small?" Emo Ting stretched out his hand and gently stroked Tongning's cheek. He had once again given up on resisting. How could he have the heart to chase someone away when they had already sent her all the way back? So he immediately asked Lu Che to contact the hospital. Accompanied by Tongning, they both went to the hospital for an examination. In the end, they received a report. There were no abnormalities. However, due to her high concentration at work, her brain would occasionally protest. Do you feel completely at ease now? Emoting asked as he held onto Tungning's shoulder. It's really just a small matter. Tungning looked at Emoting and felt relieved. But thinking about his headache, Tungning grabbed onto Emoting's arm and said, "Come with me to England. I will work and make sure you rest." Emoting sighed. He felt heartache and helplessness towards Tungning. Okay. As soon as Luce heard this, he was a little surprised. He thought to himself, his CEO used to be unshakable and had never been shaken by anyone. Yet, he had now completely fallen into a henpecked husband. But this was a good thing, a really good thing. Perhaps the only person in the world that could make Emoting listen to him was Tungning. In the end, Tungning missed her flight. So, Emoting had no choice but to ask Luce to arrange for a private jet, so she wouldn't miss her flight. Inside the luxurious cabin, Luce and Longjia sat on opposite ends of the plane. One was reading documents, and the other was watching videos. Meanwhile, Emoting was lying in Tungning's arms. This was the first time. Tungning spread open her arms and hugged him to sleep. Chapter 199. In the quiet private hospital, Lanshi woke up to the pungent smell of disinfectant. After opening her eyes, she stared blankly at the hospital room ceiling. Luo Hao stayed by her bedside. Seeing her wake up, he quickly asked, "Are you all right? Are you still dizzy? How is Ching Tian?" Lanshi asked in a raspy voice. Luo Hao pondered for a moment and answered truthfully, "It had a great impact and attracted the attention of the police, but I have asked the legal team to cooperate with the investigation. As for the murder and kidnapping, the police can't produce any evidence at the moment, so it shouldn't be a big problem. However, a lot of collaborations have already been cancelled, including commercials and endorsements. Apart from Tongning, even Hua Yuan has been given the cold shoulder." After hearing Luo Hao's words, Lanshi turned around and faced away from him. She closed her eyes and broke down in tears. "Ching Tian has been destroyed by my hands." Luo Hao did not know how to comfort Lanshi, so he simply sat quietly and cried with her. After quite some time, Luo Hao finally asked Lanshi, "There are reporters everywhere outside. The doctor said you are fine. Do you want to go home and get some rest? What difference does it make where we are now?" Lanshi asked Luo Hao. Luo Hao couldn't stand Lanshi's dispirited look anymore. He stood up and grabbed onto Lanshi's shirt. "After all these years, you've overcome everything. Can't you take a little setback? Chung Tian Entertainment hasn't closed down yet. There are so many people waiting for you to help them solve their problems. Is there any use in hiding? Don't forget, Tungning's contract is still with Chung Tian. Right now she's doing well. It is also an honor for Chung Tian." "Yes." Lanshi suddenly sneered as she freed herself from Luo Hao's grip and sat up. "Tongning is still in our hands. She can forget about going anywhere. I am going to use this contract to tie her down." Seeing Lanshi had regained some of her fighting spirit, Luo Hao slowly relaxed. He pulled out his phone and walked out of the room to give his assistant a call. "What is it?" "Director," a young woman came to the office and insisted on looking for Tongning. She kept saying that her life was at stake. From the looks of it, she's not Tongning's fan. As Tongning belonged to Chung Tian, the woman went straight to Chung Tian Entertainment. But little did she know, her actions had almost destroyed Tongning. "Ask her what she wants. She won't say," the assistant replied, "but it looks like he's really in a hurry, and he's too lazy to leave the company lobby. I'll deal with it when I get back." After speaking, Luo Hao hung up the phone. By the time he returned to the hospital room, Lanshi had already changed. "I'm going back to the company." Luo Hao nodded as he helped her carry her luggage. With the help of the hospital security, the couple returned to Chung Tian Entertainment. When he entered the hall, his assistant was waiting at the door. When he saw Luo Hao, he immediately greeted him. He pointed to the girl pacing back and forth in the hall and said, "It's her." Luo Hao nodded. After sending Lanshi back to her office, he walked over to the girl and asked, "Miss, I heard you are in a hurry to find Tongning? Why?" Hearing Luo Hao's question, The long-haired girl quickly stood up and said, I'm looking for her to save a life. Save what life? Can you give me her contact information? The man asked Luo Hao sincerely. Please do me a favor. Luo Hao was silent for a few seconds before replying. I'm sorry, I am the company's director and Tongning is a model. For the sake of Tongning's safety, I can't reveal her private information to you. However, you can tell me what happened, and I will help you pass on the message. As for whether she's willing to contact you, that will depend on her. The woman was a little troubled, but she understood Luo Hao's difficulties. So she decided to tell him the truth. It's because Tongning promised to save someone. But I can't tell you who this person is. She is currently in a critical situation, so I decided to contact Cheng Tian. I've already contacted Tongning through various channels, but she's too famous at the moment. It's too difficult to see her. I hope you can tell her that no matter what the Han family has done, at least that person hasn't wronged her. Since she promised to save someone, she shouldn't go back on her word. What illness? Why didn't you ask the hospital for help? If I could, then I wouldn't need to look for Tongning. Anyway, I hope you can pass on my message. Thank you. After speaking, the woman wrote down her contact details and handed it to Luo Hao. She then gave Luo Hao a deep bow before leaving Cheng Tian's lobby. Luo Hao looked at the number in his hand. Without a word, he crumpled the note into a ball and threw it into the bin. Surnamed Han, Luo Hao returned to his office and immediately instructed his assistant to look into Han Yufan's information. It didn't take long before he found out that Han Yufan had a younger sister. Most importantly, she was seriously ill. Looking at the information his assistant handed him, Luo Hao suddenly leaned back in his chair. Sometimes, one could wear out iron shoes in fruitless searching only to find what they were looking for without even looking. Tongning, this time, let's see who can keep their composure and who will emerge victorious. Of course, he couldn't possibly tell Tongning about this woman's request. London. Tongning was filming a fashion blockbuster on the streets. As the last model to appear on JK Fashion Week, in a short period of time, she had become famous in the fashion industry and received countless resources. Mo Ting was dressed in a trench coat as he sat by the side of the street. He had no work to do, so he was relaxed. All he could do was follow the filming crew and secretly follow his wife. After filming her blockbuster, Tongning turned around to look for Mo Ting. However, he was nowhere to be found. Tongning grabbed her phone from Long Jia and quickly sent Mo Ting a message. Where are you? Can't I even go to the bathroom? Mo Ting smiled. Tongning was in a good mood as she teased. Don't run around. Be careful that I don't want you anymore. Find your own way home. Mo Ting was relaxed, but Lu Che was busy. Similarly, in London, Mo Ting was out shopping while Lu Che was in a hotel, helping Mo Ting hold video conferences and recording important events. Madam, if this goes on, I'm going to get a migraine. Huarong's reporter had no idea what Tongning was up to 2 days ago. It wasn't easy for him to finally find out about her schedule, so he was currently rushing over to Tongning's workplace. According to Tongning's mysterious schedule, she definitely wasn't simply working. Plus, even though he was so strict, Tongning still managed to avoid his cameras and return to Beijing. From this, one could see how cautious she was. But the more cautious she was, the more curious he became about Tongning. He refused to believe that Tongning would always be so cautious. As for the man that drove her to the airport in the US, he was definitely going to appear again. Chapter 200. In order to find out Han Xiner's exact situation, Luo Hao asked someone to find the woman's contact details from the bin. Without anyone knowing, he found her home address. The man obviously didn't expect Luo Hao to personally visit. He thought Tongning had some news, so when he invited Luo Hao in, he was all smiles. Are you here to tell me that Xiner can be saved? Luo Hao looked at the woman's innocent face and gently curved his lips. Can you tell me about Han Xiner's situation? The girl thought for a moment, and sat down on the sofa next to Luo Hao. She explained to him. Xiner and I met in high school. Later, we went abroad to study together. But Xiner's kidney has always been bad. All the donors we found failed to match. Afterwards, Xiner's illness flared up and we returned to China. Afterwards, Han Yufan brought Tangning here to do a match for Xiner. So many people failed, but Tangning's kidney was a complete success. The woman lowered her head and sighed. Afterwards, we all found out about what happened at Tianyi. Xiner knew her brother had wronged Tangning, so she never mentioned asking Tangning for a kidney transplant again. She knew the Han family owed Tangning a lot. Because of this, Xiner had a complete falling out with the Han family. Right now, she's all alone in the hospital. Actually, I've wanted to look for Tangning for a long time, but Xiner kept stopping me. Recently, Xiner's health has been getting worse. I was afraid she wouldn't be able to hold on, so I tried all sorts of methods to look for Tangning. Isn't Tangning a model from your agency? That's why I came looking for you. The woman was a complete outsider to the industry, so she had no idea about the undercurrents within. All she knew was that Tangning belonged to Qing Tian, but she had no idea how bad her relationship with Qing Tian was. I've been holding it in for a long time. Since Tangning has personally agreed, you should at least give me an explanation. The doctor said that for a normal person, one kidney is more than enough to keep their body functioning. After hearing the woman's words, Luo Hao weighed the situation in his heart and asked, "Is her condition serious?" "Her kidneys are failing too badly. She's already in the middle stage of uremia. Dialysis won't be able to relieve much of her pain," the girl said, her voice choking. After hearing this, Luo Hao nodded his head. "I've already contacted Tangning, but she doesn't seem to remember what happened and hasn't given me a reply. Plus, she's currently working in England, so I can't talk to her face to face." The girl's expression changed. She pursed her lips and finally nodded. "No matter what, thank you. You're welcome." After that, Luo Hao stood up. When he left the girl's house, he accidentally heard the girl say something behind his back. The people in that industry are indeed untrustworthy. Isn't Tangning the same? To think that Xianer still misses her so much. However, she had no idea that Luo Hao had never contacted Tangning. Of course, this was not the first time he had done something like this. Not only did he hide the truth, but he also deliberately stirred up trouble from both sides. This had always been his style, even if it involved human lives this time. That night in London, Tangning was preparing dinner for Mo Ting. To reduce Mo Ting's tiredness, she only gave him 2 hours a day to deal with important matters. For the rest of the day, he spent his time working with her and adjusting his tense nerves. Mo Ting leaned against the kitchen door with his arms crossed as he watched Tangning busy herself. His lips subconsciously curved into a smile. So this was what it felt like to have someone managing you. It turned out Tangning had such a strong side to her. Of course, he had always forbidden Tangning from entering the kitchen, especially since he was afraid she would use a knife. So the couple even bought ready-made ingredients and simply prepared them for them to enjoy. After dinner, the couple leaned against each other on the sofa and watched a movie. In the past, Tangning had always been in Mo Ting's arms. But now, it was Mo Ting's turn to use Tangning's lap as a pillow. After getting sleepy, the couple returned to bed and lay facing each other. Tangning stretched out her hand and gently stroked Mo Ting's face. Her voice was extremely gentle. "Did you know you really scared me?" "Uh-huh." Mo Ting gently nodded his head. This idiot wasn't scared. She was so scared that she started crying. "Will you still do that from now on? Will you hide in the waiting room and endure the pain all by yourself?" Mo Ting looked into Tangning's bright eyes. He finally moved his arm from under her neck and pulled her into his embrace, pressing her tightly against his chest. "It's so good to have you." What else could she ask for in this lifetime? To have someone that truly placed her in his heart. Tangning lay on top of Mo Ting's body and buried her face in his chest. She then wrapped her arms around his waist and rubbed her face against his. "Ting, don't get sick. Okay." At this moment, in front of Tangning, Mo Ting was like a completely tamed king. On the outside, he could still be fierce and strong, but in front of Tangning, he could also show weakness. He could be the one that was cherished and loved. It turned out, the relationship between a man and a woman could be like this. Loving and being loved were equally blissful. After tomorrow's work is done, We will return to Beijing. After hearing this, Ting shook his head. When it comes to personal matters, I can listen to you. But when it comes to work, you need to listen to me. After JK's work is completed, many big brand offers have already been sent to your email. This is an important time for you to rise. If you miss or reject them, then JK's trip would have been a waste. But I just have a migraine. It's not like I'm going to be in pain for the rest of my life. Tongning did not say a word. She seemed to be weighing her options. She knew better than Ting that if she missed out on this opportunity, she didn't know when she would get another opportunity like this. In that case, you should rest for another 2 days. Didn't I say I would listen to you when it comes to personal matters? Ting did not refute. He simply whispered in Tongning's ear, I'll take care of the outside, you take care of the inside. Tongning smiled as she found a comfortable position in Ting's embrace and fell asleep. After an entire day of work, she was too tired. This time, she was one step away from becoming an international supermodel. She really hoped that everything would go smoothly from now on. However, Luo Hao had planted a ticking time bomb. Compared to the warmth and stability of the bedroom, Lu Che and Long Jie, who were still fighting in the study room, were extremely miserable. One had to deal with Hai Rui's trivial matters, while the other had to check on Tongning's contract. However, as Long Jie looked at Lu Che from behind, she couldn't help but let out a laugh. Chapter 201. She seemed to have no idea that in front of her and Lu Che was a piece of glass. From time to time, Lu Che lifted his head and saw Long Jie smiling at him from behind. Her infatuated expression gave him goosebumps. Most importantly, Lu Che turned around and asked Long Jie, Why do you keep sneaking glances at me? Hearing this question, Long Jie's mind went blank as her face turned red and she lowered her head. Lu Che, you bastard. Idiot. Do you really have a negative EQ? Why did you have to say something so embarrassing? Plus, do you really not like me looking at you? Long Jie's heart was suddenly overwhelmed by this possibility. But to be able to be alone like this, she was already satisfied. How could she ask for more? With this thought, Long Jie calmed herself down. However, just as she lifted her head and was about to look through Tongning's contract again, a handsome face suddenly appeared in front of her. Long Jie was so shocked that she quickly took a step back. You? What are you doing? I'm showing you. What's the point of looking at my back? Long Jie held on to her wildly beating heart. She suddenly felt a little flustered. Especially as she looked at Lu Che's bright eyes, she didn't know what to do. She wasn't sure if Lu Che was doing this on purpose, or if he really thought she should see his back. Don't tease me like this. Long Jie roared in her heart. She really wanted to pounce on him. Lu Che stared at Long Jie for a while. After deciding she had seen enough, he stood up and said, Sit in front of me. Knowing someone is looking at me from behind makes me feel a little creeped out. Long Jie. Most importantly, shouldn't this idiot be concerned about why she was sneaking glances at him? A negative EQ was really hopeless. Long Jie was a little angry. She grabbed the contract and sat down where Lu Che was sitting. She lowered her head and immersed herself in her own world. She no longer wanted to be the one sneaking glances. Being with someone like Lu Che was going to anger her to death sooner or later. Lu Che bit his pen as he looked at Long Jie's back. The corners of his lips naturally curved upwards. Am I allowed to look at you? I also want to look at you. 2 days later, Tongning finished all her work at JK and threw herself into international magazine cover shoots. One schedule followed the next. Sometimes, she even had to attend a few shows in one day. However, as she shone at the London Fashion Week, people from all over the world began to pay attention to this charming oriental face. At the end of the day, Ting had to return to Beijing. Tongning returned to the manor after nightfall. By this time, Ting had already packed his luggage and was leaning against the car door waiting for her. Because he had rested for a few days, Ting's spirit had recovered and the fatigue on his handsome face was gone. Tongning was extremely satisfied, so she hugged and kissed Ting in front of the car. When I return home, I will be able to fight side by side with you, Tongning promised as she lay on Mo Ting's chest. I will definitely do what I promised you. Mo Ting stretched out his hand and stroked his wife's soft hair. He then placed a kiss on the top of her head. I've already left a bodyguard for you. No matter what happens, give me a call as soon as possible. I know. Tongning nodded in seriousness. Let's go home early. If you are at home, where can I escape to? After speaking, Tongning stood on her tiptoes and placed a kiss on Mo Ting's lips. Mo Ting hooked his arm around Tongning's neck and took the opportunity to deepen the kiss until the couple couldn't breathe. However, they did not notice that behind the high walls, there was a reporter hanging from a tree and secretly taking pictures of the manor. Because it was nighttime and he was quite a distance away, he couldn't get a picture of the man leaning against the car. But their kiss was so obvious that no matter how blurry it was, it couldn't escape the camera. Although the reporter from Huarong Studio was disappointed that he couldn't get a picture of the man's face, at least he managed to get a picture of Tongning and the man being intimate. The reporter scoffed. He finally lived up to his expectations. After experiencing so much pain, he finally got what he wanted. Tongning, just you wait to explain everything to everyone. After sending Mo Ting off, Tongning once again returned to the manor. She stared quietly at the sofa the couple were lying on, and suddenly felt a sense of loneliness. Just a second ago, the man had just left, but now, her heart was starting to miss him. But Tongning understood, in order to become a supermodel, she needed to produce enough results on the international runway. This was something she couldn't achieve no matter how hard she struggled on the Beijing runway. Of course, apart from her, Long Jie was also feeling depressed. Although she had to put up with the idiot's low EQ after spending so much time with Lu Che, at least she was able to see him. Now that he was gone, no matter how busy she was at night, there wouldn't be anyone to complain about being tired with her. Okay, tomorrow you will have a new job to do. When we get busy, you won't have time to think too much. Long Jie knew Tongning missed Mo Ting, so she patted her on the shoulder comfortingly. Tongning was silent for a moment before she suddenly turned around and said to Long Jie, "You too." Long Jie's face turned red. She stuttered, "You? What are you talking about?" Did she really need to expose her thoughts? Tongning smiled. In just a short span of 2 days, Chung Tian Entertainment's news had been pushed out of the search rankings by New News. Even the recording that was hanging on the headlines could no longer attract the attention of the netizens. Over the past few days, Lan Shi had been busy running around trying to talk to old friends. Chung Tian's situation had improved slightly, but the main reason was because Tongning was still there. Only Luo Hao's whereabouts were a little strange. He had placed all his attention on Han Xiner's incident, especially on the friend that had helped her fight for justice. However, the words that came out of his mouth could never be true, especially when it came to Tongning. He simply continued to deepen the misunderstanding the girl had towards Tongning. For example, at this moment, he directly went to the girl's house with money and told her, "Tongning is a model, it's normal for her to take care of her body. So, she hopes Xiner can understand." But, she obviously promised Xiner that she would save her. The girl was a little angry from Luo Hao's nagging. Yuan, you need to understand. Tongning is a model, she can't possibly give up on her work. This is a breach of contract. I don't know what breach of contract is. All I know is Tongning is not trustworthy. The girl called Yuan said angrily. She has not kept her promise to Xiner. How dare she be the #1 model? She is not worthy. Also, take your money back. If you want money, I have plenty of it. Chapter 202. In front of Yuan, Luo Hao appeared helpless and anxious. It was as if he wanted to help, but was powerless to do so. After leaving Yuan's home, he lowered his head and sneered. In this world, there was going to be another person that hated Tongning. In the end, Yuan angrily visited Han Xiner at the hospital. At this time, Han Xiner, who was suffering from her illness, was watching a collection of Tongning's runway shows. Yuan stretched out her head and took a quick glance before snatching the video out of Han Xiner's hands. "Do you still think she's good?" This woman never wanted to save you. Han Xiner noticed Yuan Yuan's mood wasn't right, so she sat up and asked, "What's wrong with you recently? Why are you always saying bad things about Tongning?" "I went to Tongning's agency, but the people from Chengtian actually tried to bribe me with money. They said Tongning doesn't remember agreeing to donate a kidney to you. They also said that as a model, her body is important. What they mean is, she doesn't want to donate." As soon as Han Xiner heard this, her eyelashes gently trembled as she grabbed onto Yuan Yuan's arm. "Why did you go to Chengtian? Chengtian can't wait to trample Tongning to death. Don't you know you could be used by others?" Yuan Yuan froze for a moment before looking at Han Xiner. "Are you serious? I told you to pay more attention to the entertainment news." Han Xiner glared at her as her emotions gradually calmed down. She then asked, "You said Tongning doesn't remember agreeing to donate a kidney to me. Did you hear it with your own ears? Since you didn't speak to Tongning directly, why would you believe the words of a middleman?" Yuan Yuan was speechless, unable to refute. "By the way, Yuan Yuan, I've told you many times, Tongning has no relationship with me. Whether it's in terms of responsibility or morality, she has no reason to save me. You are a highly educated person. Don't tell me you don't understand this?" After Han Xiner finished speaking, she noticed Yuan Yuan did not respond. So she propped up her weak body and asked, "The day Qingtian sees you again, you must tell me. I will definitely let you see their true colors." Yuan Yuan thought for a moment and decided she should trust her friend more. So she nodded her head. "I simply don't want anything to happen to you. I will be fine." After working in London for half a month, Tongning's sleep had decreased to 4 hours a day. But because of her hard work over the past half a month, Tongning had secured a number of global endorsements for luxury brands, as well as attending important shows for world-renowned brands. Tongning was right. Previously, when Nziheo left, she did not cancel her contract with Chengtian. As a result, Lanxi couldn't even take care of herself and couldn't do anything to help her. Currently, Tongning was going to hand the important contracts to Emoting to review. As for the rest, she and Longjie would discuss it together. As for the interviews and remuneration, they would negotiate on their own. Because Tongning wanted opportunities, she wasn't unreasonable and her demands were reasonable. This satisfied many of her business partners. As Tongning had been overseas for a long period of time, news about her within the country had decreased. She no longer needed to use her popularity to fight for fashion resources. After JK, she had already gotten past the awkward stage. However, she had no idea, beneath the seemingly calm surface of Beijing, there was actually a turbulent undercurrent. Luo Hao and Chengtian had not been completely resolved. During this time, Lanxi had used her connections to poach a few newcomers with potential from other agencies. However, even though Lanxi did not ask about Tongning's matters, she had been keeping an eye on her. Seeing Tongning's achievements on the international runway, she no longer contacted Luo Hao. It seemed she was ready to admit defeat. What else could she do to stop her? Every day, Longjie would sit in the study room and draw a red cross on the calendar. She would calculate how many days it would be before she returned to China, and how long it would be before she could see Lu Che again. Tongning even noticed Longjie had lost weight during this time. She wasn't sure if it was due to the torture of work, or because she missed Lu Che. Tongning returned to her bedroom, and lay in bed talking to Emoting on the phone. No matter how late it was, Tongning needed to hear Emoting's voice before she could fall asleep. So, Emoting now had a new job to do. Sometimes, Tongning would fall asleep with her phone in her hand, but Emoting would not hang up on her. He would leave the phone on until she woke up the next day, and Emoting would continue to say good morning to her. Lu Che had seen this scene many times. He once thought to himself, although his president wasn't in the UK, his daily routine was in sync with the British. "Ting, how many days until I return?" "For days," Emoting replied gently over the phone. For days. I'll get through it if I grit my teeth." Tongning replied as she washed her face. "I really missed you too much. If it took any longer, I wouldn't be able to hold on any longer. I just returned from the UK 2 days ago." Emoting's voice was a little helpless but doting. "So you don't miss me anymore?" When I left 2 days ago, I clearly expressed how much I missed you. After hearing this, Tongning's face turned red. Wait for me, I'll be back soon. Wait for me? Everything she did was for the sake of being as glorious as the sun. Emoting looked at the wedding ring on his finger and seemed to have come to a realization. We still need to love each other for the rest of our lives. I'll wait for you. Tongning smiled in satisfaction. It seemed, as long as Emoting was guiding her, no matter how tired she would still be able to move forward. Half a month after Han Xiner requested to see Luo Hao finally came to see Yuan Yuan again. Yuan immediately gave her driver a phone call and instructed him to pick Xiner up from the hospital without anyone noticing. Luo Hao had no idea. Every time he came, he would come with an apologetic message and a message that Tongning wanted to pass to Han Xiner. Tongning will be returning to the UK in a few days. She asked me to ask you not to use Xiner's incident to create hype. It hasn't been easy for her to get to where she is today. She doesn't want anything to affect her status. Yuan looked at Luo Hao. With Han Xiner's warning, she had become a little smarter, so she deliberately said, I've long since given up hope that she'll keep her promise. Status? Is she even worthy of being a model? If anything happens to Xiner, I will make sure she regrets it for the rest of her life. Yuan, don't be so extreme. Tongning has no choice. Yuan scoffed. Tongning also said that you can name any condition you want. Mr. Luo, please be honest with me. What were Tongning's exact words? Yuan deliberately tried to get information out of Luo Hao. Seeing Yuan was angry, Luo Hao held it in for a moment before replying. Han Xiner? What has she got to do with me? Isn't her death a good thing? Shouldn't the entire Han family die? How could she expect me to save her? I am a famous model. Why would I give up a kidney for someone I have nothing to do with? Dream on. Did she really say that? Yuan's face turned red. Aha. Luo Hao nodded his head as he looked at Yuan and said firmly, those are Tongning's exact words. At this time, the door to the Yuan family home's dining room suddenly opened. Han Xiner snuck in through the side door and approached Luo Hao and Yuan with the help of the housekeeper. She looked at Luo Hao with a pale face and asked, Did Tongning say this? Are you sure? Luo Hao didn't say anything because he felt a burning pain on his cheek, and it was a hard slap from a little girl in her early 20s. As a result, he left the Yuan family's villa in a straight line. No one knew what he was thinking as he left. As soon as Luo Hao left, Han Xiner couldn't help but take a few steps back. Yuan immediately reached out her hand to hold her. Don't be so agitated. If I wasn't excited, you wouldn't even know that you were sold by him. Han Xiner pushed Yuan on the head. Idiot, from now on, can you stop thinking with your butt? If I really wasn't around, what would you do? Yuan choked up as she hugged onto her best friend, unwilling to let go. But Han Xiner was also exhausted, so she fainted in Yuan's arms. Yuan was so shocked that she immediately rushed her back to the hospital. This wasn't something that money could solve. Did she really have to break the law and buy someone else's health? If Tongning didn't become the donor, then who else could save Xiner? Not a single member of the Han family could be relied on. Above all, Han Xiner was admitted to the ICU. Even Yuan had to stay within the designated time to visit her. However, the first thing that Han Xiner said after waking up was that she was worried Tongning would be caught red-handed by Cheng Tian because of the promise she had made. If she died, then she died. This was fate and no one could change it. But Tongning still had a long road ahead of her. So when Yuan came to visit, Han Xiner simply said, Yuan, can you help me look for my brother? I want to see him. Isn't your brother parking the car for the hotel? I want to see him. She wanted Han Yufan to promise her that if one day Tongning was implicated because of this incident, he would step out to clear her name. Meanwhile, when Han Yufan saw his sister, apart from feeling heartache, he also smiled bitterly. You don't need to worry too much about Tongning, because her husband is the CEO of Hai Rui. Han Xiner was stunned for a moment and did not say a word. But this did not affect her respect for Tongning, because Tongning was still the same Tongning. Do you regret it? Tongning was once so loyal to you. Yet you insisted on having an affair with Mo Euro. Han Yufan's arrogance had long been worn away. Right now, he didn't want to think about anything else. All he wanted to do was earn some money and start afresh. After Han Yufan and Yuan left, Han Xiner lay in bed to get some rest. However, she kept hearing the sound of a camera shutter. So, she pretended to be asleep the entire time. As she felt the footsteps approach her, Han Xiner slightly opened her eyes. She discovered the medical staff had not only taken a photo of her, he had also taken a photo of her medical records on the bedside table. Han Xiner had a feeling Luo Hao was going to use this incident to suppress Tongning. Or even, he wanted to destroy her completely. Han Xiner wondered if she could get in touch with Tongning. If she couldn't, then who could she look for? That evening, as the sky turned blood red, Chengtian Entertainment hung up Tongning's poster in the most eye-catching spot in the building. Lan Shi had already thought it through. At a time when Chengtian Entertainment was suffering, there was no need to go against money and benefits. After Luo Hao entered Chengtian, he simply glanced at it briefly before heading back to his office. However, Lan Shi called out to him. Tongning will be returning in a few days. Let's hold a celebratory dinner for her. She's returning soon? Luo Hao thought for a moment. It seemed it was time to send Han Xiner on her way early. Once an artist's life was involved, there was no other way out. All they could do was fall from the highest point and be smashed to pieces. Han Xiner also felt the same way. She was like a bomb, but who could she look for help? Mo Ting? Could she? Chapter 204. But she was just a normal university student. What method could she use to see Mo Ting? Yuan understood Han Xiner's anxiety. Although she thought Han Xiner was a little silly, she was still her best friend. So while visiting Han Xiner, Yuan said, I don't have any friends in the entertainment industry, but I can use my family background to help you. But Xiner, I've already looked into the CEO of Hai Rui. He is a legend in the entertainment industry. Will he be willing to see you? Han Xiner lowered her head in disappointment. Yuan smiled and comforted. Since he and Tongning are husband and wife, he might be willing. Even though, I think a man like him wouldn't care about a small fry like us. Han Xiner knew Yuan wasn't having it easy, so her hope was reignited. Just do your best. But Tongning is already married to the big boss of the entertainment industry. Why hasn't she announced their relationship? Why is she holding on so bitterly? I don't think Chengtian knows about this. Han Xiner thought about it for a moment, and felt this was exactly how Tongning did things. So she reminded Yuan, don't tell anyone about this. Tongning must have her own plans. I can't guarantee anything else, but I can promise you this. Although her feelings towards Tongning were complicated, compared to Chengtian, she was more willing to trust Tongning. Since Chengtian had been plotting against Tongning all this time, when Tongning finally revealed her trump card, she was sure to scare a lot of people silly. However, Han Xiner's condition continued to worsen. So Yuan quickly went to beg her rich father. Although it didn't seem to work, at least it was enough for him to say something. After Han Xiner found out, she specifically asked Yuan to add a few words for her father's secretary to pass on to Mo Ting. This matter concerns Chengtian, please make sure he shows up. With this, Mo Ting would understand, right? Mo Ting's time was not easy to schedule, especially when the Yuan family was using the excuse of investing in film and television. Mo Ting straightforwardly replied, reject. That night, Father Yuan and his daughter sat in a private room of a 5-star hotel with Han Xiner, who was barely able to leave the hospital, waiting for Mo Ting. However, after 3 hours, Mo Ting was still nowhere to be seen. From what I see, this Mo Ting doesn't treat Tongning well. We've already made things so clear, yet he still hasn't shown himself. Yuan said in a dejected tone. Because of this, her impression of Tongning marrying Mo Ting increased. Han Xiner shook her head in disagreement. She simply said apologetically to Father Yuan. I'm sorry Uncle Yuan for making you wait for so long. It's alright, Xi. Uncle's body can't take it anymore. I'll go back now. You guys continue to wait. Yuan sent her father off and returned to her seat. She looked at the dishes on the table and felt dizzy. I'm so hungry. Another 2 hours passed and it was already midnight. Yuan had completely lost her patience as she slammed her hands on the table and stood up. This emoting is too much. Even if we are insignificant people, he shouldn't humiliate us like this. Plus, we are only helping his wife. He doesn't care about Tongning at all. As his words fell, a tall figure appeared behind her. Of course, that was Lu Che. Afterwards, Emoting entered the private room. Yuan did not expect to see the person in person. She was a little surprised as she sat down awkwardly. In reality, Han Xiner was also quite surprised. She had already decided that Emoting would never show up. Who would have thought he actually showed up? Emoting also did not expect to see two young ladies. So to avoid any misunderstandings, he asked Lu Che to sit down with them. Han Xiner had no time to waste, so she directly said to Emoting, President Emo, I asked you to come because of Tongning. As soon as Emoting heard the name Tongning, he furrowed his brows. From this simple action, Yuan could feel the dangerous aura emanating from his body. Did he need to be so scary? So, Han Xiner spent some time explaining her identity, as well as her encounter with Luo Hao and how he found out Tongning had agreed to donate a kidney to Emoting. Actually, even after the entire story was told, Han Xiner still felt like it wasn't real. She never expected Emoting to be sitting in front of her. Tongning will never donate a kidney to you, Emoting said straightforwardly as he adjusted his jacket. Emoting straightened the front of his coat and straightforwardly told Han Xiner, as her husband, not to mention removing her kidney, even if she were to go for a blood test or an injection, my heart would ache for half a day. After hearing this, Han Xiner nodded her head calmly. I never had such extravagant hopes. However, Yuan was a little angry, just as she was about to say what was so great about it. Emoting's next sentence made her swallow the words she was about to say. But, I can help you find a kidney, anywhere in the world. I know, the Han family owes Tongning too much. I really didn't come here for a kidney. I simply don't want Ningjie to be hurt again. Even if Tongning was here today, she would still do the same thing. Your brother has wronged her, but that is your brother's fault. It has nothing to do with you. She has always been clear about her debts. But, do you think I can't represent her? After asking this question, Emoting stood up and instructed Lu Che, escort them home. Afterwards, go to Han Xiner's hospital and get a copy of the relevant doctor's information. Also, arrest any hospital staff that takes photos of Han Xiner or acts strangely. If you allow Luo Hao to find an opportunity to make a move, then I will no longer need you by my side. After hearing Emoting's instructions, Lu Che immediately nodded his head. Don't worry, President. Han Xiner and Yuan looked at the tall and sturdy Emoting. They finally understood the rumors that had been circulating around them. How he was decisive and serious. Yes, these weren't rumors, they were the truth. In fact, Yuan didn't even dare to look at Emoting. As she left the hotel, she looked more like a patient than Han Xiner. Xiner, my legs are weak. Will Tongning really be happy marrying such a cold man? Han Xiner smiled as dimples appeared on her cheeks. But I can tell that he loves Tongning. Otherwise, do you think he would be willing to marry an insignificant person like us? Plus, didn't you hear what he said? At least, he's much better than my second brother. Regardless, Yuan, thank you for today. With someone protecting Tongning, I can rest assured. Hey, do you think that Luo Hao will die a horrible death? That's Emoting. As Lu Che drove, he overheard the two friends discussing Emoting and the relationship between Tongning and Emoting. Lu Che thought to himself, they were doing well. However, they didn't need to prove anything to the public. As for Luo Hao, Lu Che wasn't confident. It all depended on his CEO's mood. Of course, in a situation like this, no one would be in a good mood. Chapter 205. In reality, even Luo Hao wasn't sure how far he should go with Han Xiner. In reality, he could use Han Xiner's incident to create hype. But according to Tongning's current status, news like this would be drowned in a sea of news and wouldn't have any negative impact on Tongning. Sometimes, Luo Hao even thought of letting go, just like Lan Shi. But things had already gotten to this point. Not only did he have to bear the hatred of Yang Jing and Lan Shi, he also had to stop Tongning from the beginning. The main reason he couldn't stop was because he knew Tongning was a vengeful person. Especially now that Tongning's status in Chengtian was like the sun in the sky. Did he, Hua Yuan and even Lan Shi have to listen to a model? In the end, Luo Hao made his decision. In this realistic agency and this cruel industry, when there was an opportunity to step on others, there was no use in using underhanded methods. So although dealing with Han Xiner was risky, if it was played well, it would yield miraculous results. He would be able to destroy Tongning in one fell swoop. Perhaps it was because Han Xiner had been out for too long and caught a cold, but as soon as she returned to the hospital, she started running a high fever. As a result, she was immediately sent to the emergency room for emergency treatment. Yuan was filled with regret. If she had known this would happen, she wouldn't have agreed to let Xiner take her out of the hospital. Now her life was in danger. Most importantly, during Xiner's critical moment, the emergency room doctor discovered one of his nurses had pulled out her phone and taken a photo of the patient. Although she did it discreetly, the doctor notified the head nurse and the nurse was kicked out. As soon as Yuan heard about the incident, she was furious. "Are you even human?" The nurse was scolded by the head nurse and Yuan in turn. She was so humiliated that she began to cry. Although Yuan wasn't very smart, she definitely had a temper. So she grabbed onto the nurse and warned, "Who told you to do this?" Lu Che was already in the middle of making arrangements. As soon as he heard about the incident, he immediately rushed over to the emergency room and said to Yuan, "Leave this matter to me. Don't let this jerk off so easily." Lu Che nodded his head and brought the jerk to the department head's office. He also took the nurse's phone records with Luo Hao and the photos she took as evidence. This included the nurse's verbal evidence and the bank account number she gave him. Afterwards, Lu Che instructed the man, "Send these photos to him as usual and don't let him know that we already have evidence. Keep it a secret, otherwise I will call the police." The man waved his trembling hands. "No, I'll do whatever you say as long as you don't call the police." Lu Che put away the evidence. If Luo Hao hadn't been so impatient this time, he wouldn't have been able to catch him in a short time. However, Han Xiner's condition did not improve. Even after emergency resuscitation, her vital signs did not stabilize. "Xiner is so pitiful. If she doesn't wake up within 12 hours, we'll have to go through a second surgery." Lu Che looked at Yuan and realized that this pair of friends had a very deep relationship, so he comforted her. "It will get better." The doctor said that the success rate of Xiner's surgery tomorrow will be even lower than today. However, Han Xiner didn't last for more than 12 hours before she was once again sent into surgery. This time, the doctors all expressed that there was no hope. The doctor walked out of the surgery room and told the family to prepare for her funeral. But Lu Che made a prompt decision and immediately transferred Han Xiner to the best hospital in Beijing for treatment. But because the doctor told the family to prepare for her funeral, Luo Hao took advantage of it and exposed Han Xiner's condition while no one was paying attention. This was a godsend opportunity. He even prepared an angry post from the perspective of Han Xiner's friend, accusing Tongning of not being human and not being trustworthy. She had once promised to save Han Xiner's life, yet she went back on her word, causing the patient to miss out on finding a kidney. In the end, she almost died. No one noticed the word almost. All they saw was her death. Tongning indirectly killed someone. She killed someone. She killed someone. As long as a post like this was released, regardless of whether Han Xiner ended up dead or alive, the public's attention would be drawn to the word murder. In simpler terms, it would be, Tongning killed someone. When the news was released, Han Xiner had just been rescued. But Yuan did not tell her about the news in Beijing because she was afraid she wouldn't be able to handle the shock. However, Yuan never expected Luo Hao to be so despicable and shameless. He actually took advantage of a loophole like this. She almost became his chess piece and became the person to accuse Tongning. What should we do now? Yuan asked Lu Che anxiously. Will we really implicate Tongning? Lu Che smiled in relief and said confidently, the media loves to follow the trend these days. Don't forget, everyone is talking about Tongning killing someone. Yet Han Xiner is still alive and well. How could she be accused of killing someone? I never expected Luo Hao to be in such a rush. But these people are scolding her so harshly. Let them scold her. Our madam has already been scolded so many times. Why would she care about this one more time? But this time it's different. They are accusing her of murder. The reason why Luo Hao dared to release this information was firstly, because Tongning had promised to donate her kidney to Han Xiner. Secondly, even if Han Xiner didn't die, she was still on the brink of death and Tongning didn't save her. So, in the eyes of keyboard warriors, killing someone was no different. Because she didn't save someone. This time, no matter how Tongning tries to turn things around, I will never trust her again. She's too meddlesome. Don't tell me there's nothing wrong with her. If you can't save someone, then don't boast. If you boast, then don't run away from responsibility. Doesn't Tongning like to create hype? She's too scheming. I'm a fan. But if Tongning is really as the post says, I will definitely hate her for life. Hurry and ban her. Just looking at her makes me tired. I'm really tired of looking at her. But when you think about it, these people might have been shouting I love you just yesterday. But sometimes the human heart could be this cold. Online discussions and alliances to boycott Tongning began to appear. They claimed that they wouldn't buy Tongning's endorsements and wouldn't even read Tongning's magazines. Out of all the confrontations that Luo Hao had, this was probably the most satisfying one. The negative impact it had on Tongning was unprecedented. But it did not affect Tongning's work in England in the slightest. After all, Westerners would only ask one question. Why should I save her? After Tongning finished work, she saw the news that broke out. She had already spoken to Mo Ting, and was mentally prepared. This time, she was being used because she had indeed said something. Even if she could lie to others, she couldn't lie to herself. As for the reason why Mo Ting didn't stop the situation from escalating, it was because he wanted to teach Luo Hao and the keyboard warriors a lesson. Above all, he wanted to create an excuse and opportunity for her to leave Qingtian. Before hanging up the phone, Mo Ting gave her a message. You only have one choice now, come to Hai Rui. Chapter 206. This time, Mo Ting did not give her any other options. He did not mention Star King again. He simply said, you only have one choice. Come to Hai Rui. It seemed there was no such thing as absolute fairness in this world, but there was absolute power. Hai Rui belonged to Mo Ting. As for Hai Rui, if there was any shady dealings or unwritten rules, Mo Ting would not give anyone a chance. Even if the person was a superstar, they would still meet their downfall. This time, although Tongning did not nod in agreement, she did not reject him either. As she hung up the phone, a slight smile appeared on her face. Because at Hai Rui, she no longer felt afraid or inferior. This time, the explosive news spread like wildfire without giving Tongning any time to catch her breath. Resistance towards her reached all levels. Even when she had just appeared on her Vision magazine, she had never received such a cold reception. Obviously, because of human lives, even Tongning's professional attitude could not save her from the criticism from her anti-fans. Luo Hao had already seen through her PR methods. But, this time the hatred and resistance that Tongning aroused was felt by the entire nation. It was the result of the anti-fans working together. Even if someone appeared online to speak up for Tongning, they would be quickly destroyed by the anti-fans. So, after the Han Xiner incident, no one stood out to speak up for Tongning. Even her former business partners, even TQ's Lin Weisan, chose to keep their mouths shut when faced with the media. It wasn't that they didn't trust Tongning, But no matter what they said to them, it would be an excuse. For Tongning, it would only make things worse. Of course, Chung Tian Entertainment did not do anything about the incident. As soon as the incident began, Lan Shi approached Luo Hao. Although she hated Tongning, Tongning's rising status overseas brought about significant benefits for Chung Tian. After experiencing in Ziheo's exposure, Chung Tian's reputation was slowly recovering. But Luo Hao had gone too far this time. In fact, he had even gambled Chung Tian's future. So Lan Shi was extremely unhappy. Did you know that we are now in a relationship where we are bound together for good or bad? By exposing Tongning like this, aren't you afraid that Chung Tian Entertainment will also lose out? Lan Shi threw all the newspapers in her hands at Luo Hao's face. Did you know that after Tongning's scandal broke out, our company's share price dropped to the freezing point? When Luo Hao heard this, he could not say that there was no hesitation in his eyes, but he still moved his Adam's apple and said, I know what I'm doing. You know your limits. Lan Shi sneered. You have no confidence in yourself. Who do you think you are? Do you think you're a god? You can control the thoughts of a few people, but can you control the entire network? Actually, I've always known that out of the three of them, you are the most patient. Because you think you can do great things. I also have to admit that sometimes your company makes me feel at ease, but when you stab someone with a knife, you also raise your hand and the knife falls down, sealing the throat with the touch of blood. Lan Shi finally understood what it meant to reap what you sow. Why did she fail so badly and why her career was constantly ruined by her own people? I told you, I know what I'm doing. Just leave it to me. Lan Shi did not say another word as she looked at Luo Hao mockingly. The two women's eyes met. In the end, Lan Shi admitted defeat. Things had already gotten to this point. Was there any room to turn back? However, after all the time she had tried to frame Tongning, this was the first time she felt a little guilty. Murder. When a label like this was placed on someone, what would be destroyed? No one could control it. I heard that Han Xiner's friend contacted Tongning a few times, but Tongning told her to die. Didn't she find the friend that hit Han Xiner and threaten her not to make a sound? Haven't you guys seen the latest news? Apparently, Tongning has a grudge against the Han family, so she deliberately prevented Han Xiner from finding another kidney. Tongning go die. Exactly, Tongning deserves to die. Tongning, why aren't you dead yet? This was an overwhelming amount of scandals, as well as extremely filthy insults. The netizens spread the rumor that Tongning had broken her promise, almost causing Han Xiner's death, and that Tongning had wanted to kill Han Xiner. Even funnier was the fact that a loyal fan of hers had posted Tongning's upcoming return schedule online. They even included an arrogant comment, "Slut. Return to your country immediately and prepare to be attacked." In reality, at 10 p.m. in the UK, 8 a.m. in Beijing, Tongning's flight had already landed at the airport a day early. Mo Ting immediately sent someone to pick Tongning up from the tarmac and return to Hyatt Regency without alerting the media. As soon as she stepped through the front door, Mo Ting was waiting at the door dressed in casual clothes. As soon as he saw her, he immediately opened his arms wide. Without hesitation, Tongning pounced over and buried herself in Mo Ting's chest. Both of them let out a satisfied sigh. Some people said, a woman was a man's second rib, and a hug was to let the rib return to its original position. I agree. Tongning hugged Mo Ting's waist tightly as she said these two words out of the blue. I promise. Mo Ting froze for a moment before he realized what she had promised. I didn't reply to you over the phone because I wanted you to see my expression and understand that I wasn't joking, Tongning said in seriousness as she lifted her head from Mo Ting's embrace. Mo Ting's heart ached as he gently patted Tongning on the head and nodded his head. My empire will provide you with the strongest protection. I know, Tongning nodded. I will give you the fairest treatment. I know, Tongning replied. I'm just worried that the other people at Hai Rui will think it's unfair. You've already shone brightly on JK and secured a number of endorsements for luxury brands. Who would dare to say anything? I'm just worried that you will protect me and be unfair to others, Tongning suddenly laughed. Would you do that? The agency will formulate a reasonable plan based on each artist's development. Everyone has their own goals and prospects. In other words, Hai Rui's arrangements for each artist were tailored to their current development. Hai Rui paid attention to the psychological changes of their artists. As soon as they felt uncomfortable, their manager would immediately adjust until they understood where they stood. So they treated themselves as opponents and treated their opponents as goals. In that case, who are you going to hire as my manager? Chapter 207. Who do you want to be your manager? Emoting asked instead of answering. Tongning shook her head. She had a deep sense of trust towards Hai Rui. Plus, with her current status, although it wasn't that she didn't have the qualifications to enter Hai Rui, she definitely wasn't a big deal. Emoting smiled mysteriously without giving an answer. He simply led Tongning back to the bedroom and helped her lie down on the bed. Don't think about anything right now. Get used to the jet lag and wait for me to get home from work. Since you are scheduled to return tomorrow today, you can take some time off. Tongning lay on the bed and held onto Emoting's hand. I'm fine, don't worry. After experiencing so much, as long as she continued to move forward, she wouldn't feel despair. I'll get Lu Che to arrange for Long Jie to send Cheng Tian a contract termination letter. Okay. Tongning gently nodded her head. However, as Emoting turned to leave, she reached out her hand and held on to him. I want to see Xing Er. I know you're worried, so I've already made arrangements for you. After you've had enough sleep, Lu Che will take you there. After speaking, Emoting leaned over and placed a gentle kiss on Tongning's forehead. Feeling at ease, Tongning slowly closed her eyes. Her eyelashes gently trembled a few times, and soon, she fell into a deep sleep. Although she was exhausted, Tongning was well aware that the pressure of work was greater than the scandal that broke out in Chengtian. She no longer felt sorry for herself, and was no longer sad over the comments. She was reminded of something a famous person once said. When netizens don't even have the courage to use their real names, they simply judge and humiliate you. In reality, what they say has no value. You don't need to be angry or sad over their irresponsible actions. At times like this, all you need to do is rest up and use the most appropriate method to strike back. Emoting only left home after making sure Tongning had fallen asleep. However, on the way to Hai Rui, Lu Che couldn't help but ask, regarding the madam's incident, are we going to follow the usual procedures? Emoting looked down at the documents in his hands. His voice was deep and alluring. This time, the order is like this. Contact the law firm and send Cheng Tian a contract termination letter on Tongning's behalf. After Cheng Tian announces the termination, get the artist's director to announce that Tongning has officially joined Hai Rui. Announce it first? Why don't you solve the problem first? The announcement is part of the solution. Afterwards, Hai Rui will hold a press conference to clarify the Han Xiner incident. Most importantly, we need to find 10 unusually active anti-fans and extract information from them to use at the press conference. I want them to know that if they speak carelessly, they will have to pay a price that they will never be able to imagine in their lifetime. After hearing this, Lu Che suddenly felt excited. Luo Hao would never understand that all the effort he had put into setting up a trap was simply to help Tongning's career take another step forward. Then who is Madam's manager? Me. Emoting was silent for a few seconds before suddenly saying this one word. Lu Che was taken aback for a moment. Astonishment filled his face. But for now, don't announce it to the public and don't tell Tongning. Lu Che smiled and nodded. It seemed, the only person in the world that could sign with Hai Rui and have Emoting as their manager was Tongning. He suddenly looked forward to the day the truth would be announced. Did Luo Hao think he would deal a critical blow to Tongning? How pitiful. After Han Xiner woke up from her surgery, the first thing she did was ask Tongning how she was doing. Yuan glanced at her. She was too afraid to tell Han Xiner about the bloodbath that was taking place outside. So all she could do was beat around the bush. However, Han Xiner wasn't an easy person to fool. All it took was one glance for her to see through Yuan's act. So she struggled to sit up and asked Yuan for her phone. Xiner, you can't even take care of yourself right now. Can't you get some rest? You said yourself that Tongning has someone protecting her. But Yuan couldn't resist Han Xiner's pleading expression, so she handed the phone to her. Han Xiner opened up the webpage and saw the words Tongning murder was at the top of the search rankings. She suddenly panicked as she struggled to get up. I'm alive and well. Why are these people talking nonsense? Yuan quickly held her back. She was so angry that she almost laughed. Look at you, where can you go? Hurry and lie back down. You should be worried about Tongning. You will be able to see her soon. As the two were talking, Tongning and Han Xiner's doctor entered Han Xiner's hospital room together. The doctor was holding onto a case file as he said to Tongning, she is currently in the middle stages of her treatment. Luckily, she still has time and a chance. But she can't catch a cold like she did this time. She can't be stubborn either. President Mo has already arranged for a match, and we are currently searching for resources around the world. I'm sure we will hear back soon. Miss Tang, you don't need to worry. Thank you, doctor. The doctor thanked her politely before leaving the room. At this time, Tongning turned around and looked at Han Xiner helplessly. Your brother's mistake shouldn't be shouldered by you. You didn't contact me all this time, so I didn't know your condition had gotten this serious. Han Xiner's heart ached as she turned her face away. I'm fine. You're as stubborn as me. Tongning sighed as she walked over to Han Xiner's bed and sat down beside her. Han Xiner looked at Tongning's calm expression and asked, don't you mind the rumors that are going around? As long as I clear the air, everything will be fine. Things aren't as complicated as you think. But it's not something that you can clear up with just a few words. Tongning held on to Han Xiner and comforted her. I have my own plans. Plus, didn't you already know? I married an amazing man. He won't let me get hurt. Seeing Tongning wasn't trying to comfort her, Han Xiner relaxed. If you need me, just let me know. Her husband is so capable, it would be strange if she needed you. Hurry and go to sleep. Yuan yelled at Han Xiner in a rough voice. Yuan couldn't stand it anymore as she yelled at Han Xiner. After yelling at her, she felt guilty, so she quickly apologized to her. I'm sorry about what happened this time. If it wasn't for me, that jerk Luo Hao would never have found out about the agreement between you and Xiner. You can't win against him, so don't blame yourself. But what's up with your fans in the fan club? Even if I were to become the president, I'd be better than them, Yuan complained. Me too, Han Xiner replied. I've watched every single one of your shows and bought every single one of your magazines. I can guarantee that I understand you better than they do. In that case, when you get better, you can come and become the president of my fan club. Tongning couldn't help but laugh. Chapter 208. The next morning, the entertainment news was broadcasting the scene at Beijing Airport, and the TV station was broadcasting an interview with a reporter. I'm afraid this is not only my first time as a reporter, but also the first time I've seen something like this. Fans gathered together on such a large scale, not because they like someone, but because they hate them. From the scene, we can see that these fans are holding banners and holding up placards. Without exception, they are all expressing their anger towards the model, Tongning. After speaking, the reporter looked down at her watch and lifted her head. From what we know, Tongning's flight will land at 10 a.m. this morning. She has less than 20 minutes left. The airport is currently undergoing emergency security measures. At this time, we simply hope that Tongning can escape safely and not get hurt. After Long Jie finished watching the news, she lifted her hand and turned off the television. She then turned her head to look at Tongning. She was standing next to the dining table trimming some flowers. I've already asked my lawyer to send out a contract termination letter. I'm guessing it's already in Lan Shi's hands, Long Jie said as she turned around to look at Tongning. Tongning did not say a word as she continued to prune the flowers. Tongning, do you know how angry I was after reading those comments on Weibo last night? Look at me, my eyes are swollen from crying. Long Jie said as she pointed to her peach-shaped eyes. You deserved it, Tongning replied calmly. I'm doing all this for you. You're considered an outstanding outlier. There are so many fans out there to pick up their idols. They're even singing "I Only Like You" to their idols. Look at your fans. They're holding banners telling you to get lost, asking you to apologize, and even asking you to die. I think after this battle, my name will go down in history. Tongning continued pruning the roses and placing them into a glass vase. However, Tongning could roughly guess what Long Jie was trying to do. She was obviously trying to test her mood. But, after experiencing so much, she no longer cared about the hurt from the rumors. In the past she had to endure it, but now she no longer cared. Long Jie was satisfied with the results of her test. She had already ridiculed Tongning to this extent, yet Tongning remained calm. So, she slowly let go of the anxiety in her heart. Originally, she wanted to change the topic and talk about something happy. However, at this moment, she received a phone call from Lan Shi. After seeing the number, Long Jie asked if Tongning wanted to pick up. Tongning put down her scissors and grabbed the phone. "Have you returned to China?" Lan Shi asked. "Have you returned?" Lan Shi asked. As she had just received Tongning's contract termination letter, Lan Shi guessed that Tongning was already in China. This was in line with her usual style of doing things. She would never give her anti-fans a chance to surround her. "I arrived yesterday," Tongning replied calmly without hiding anything. The two of them, who used to be at loggerheads with each other, were able to speak calmly after such an incident. If they hadn't chosen a superior and subordinate relationship from the very beginning, if they had only chosen to be friends, perhaps they would never have reached this step. "I've received the contract cancellation letter." Lan Shi looked at the contract cancellation letter again and again. Her emotions were a little complicated. In reality, she didn't know what to say to Tongning. However, as the CEO of the agency, she still had to express the agency's stance. "Tongning, do you know how much damage you've caused Qingtian? You should ask the person who leaked the information," Tongning hinted at Luo Hao. Qingtian also did nothing in this matter, and did not fulfill their responsibilities. Therefore, there is no need to argue that there are mistakes between us. I have already signed the contract termination letter. "Thank you," Tongning said. "Qingtian will soon announce that you have been kicked out of the agency. There is nothing I can do about it, because I am a businessman. You don't have to find excuses for your shamelessness. You should be happy to see me reach this point. After all, you've won and destroyed the business that I've worked so hard to build." Happy? Lan Shi couldn't feel it at all. "Tongning, of course, I have a problem with being competitive. But with your personality, it's not suitable for you to stay in the entertainment and fashion industry. You get in the way of too many people and make them seem dirty and shameless. So, there are a lot of people that want to drag you down. They want to see this noble model one day fall for unwritten rules, be teased and humiliated. So you deserve today's outcome. So you can't wait to imagine me living like a rat on the street, right? Did you think I've been beaten back to my original state, and can no longer make a comeback?" After asking these two questions, Tongning paused for a moment before letting out a laugh. "At least, I'll have to hide and live. That's why I didn't pursue the company for the losses you caused. Consider this my last bit of friendship." Tongning suddenly laughed. In fact, she laughed so hard that her stomach hurt. "In that case, I really need to thank you for letting go. Qingtian will release a statement this afternoon. When that time came, it would be a devastating blow to Tongning. Feel free to do as you please." Tongning had no intention of lowering her head. In fact, her voice sounded fearless. Lan Shi felt Tongning was holding back her anger. She felt she understood Tongning well enough. Even if she lost everything, she still needed her pride. Afterwards, Lan Shi hung up the phone. She looked at Luo Hao and said with a hint of reluctance, "Tongning has terminated her contract. You can handle the rest. After all, it doesn't matter if I'm in this company or not. I never wanted to force you. I simply didn't want you to be soft-hearted. You should be saying these words to yourself. If there's nothing else, then get out." Lan Shi said in disgust as she lowered her head and returned her attention to the documents in front of her. The fate of the company had been placed in the hands of an artist's director. How could she be willing to accept this? Luo Hao knew this time he had not only stepped on Lan Shi's bottom line but also Lan Shi's already cold heart. Although you may find it disgusting, after so many years in Qingtian, even though I've done a lot of things for myself, I have never thought of betraying Qingtian or you. Lan Shi, can't you tell? I have feelings for you. After hearing this, Lan Shi was amused. It is quite disgusting. You better focus on dealing with Tongning. Otherwise, I won't believe a single word you say. Chapter 209. Inside the crowded airport, the anti-fans waited for 2 hours, but Tongning was nowhere to be seen. Finally, they realized that Tongning had probably returned to China early. So in the eyes of these people, she gained a new nickname. Cheap model that plays people around. Sometimes it was hard to understand the dark thoughts of these people. Even if they couldn't afford to offend her, couldn't they just avoid her? Don't tell me that he doesn't know how to dodge when he knows that you're blocking the door? Is he going to fight you head-on like an idiot? But in the hearts of these people, they took it for granted. If you did something wrong, you should accept our criticism and endure our slaps. If you hid, it meant you had a guilty conscience, you were in the wrong, and you were cheap. No one cared about the so-called truth. Groups of anti-fans couldn't find Tongning, so they surrounded Chengtian Entertainment. However, Chengtian's people also expressed that they had never seen Tongning in person. In the end, Chengtian's people revealed that they would be releasing a short statement in the afternoon, and hoped everyone would calm down. If Chengtian continues to shield Tongning, we will boycott you until you close your doors. Although I know the entertainment industry is dirty, I hope you still have a bottom line and tell someone like Tongning to leave. A cheap model that only knows how to hide will forever live in the dark for the rest of her life. Meanwhile, at Hairui Entertainment CEO's office, Mo Ting held a short meeting and told everyone that he had already drafted a contract and was ready to sign Tongning to Hairui. The higher-ups looked at each other in confusion. Why would Mo Ting, who had always been known to boycott bad artists, want to sign Tongning to Hairui? President Mo, as you've seen, Tongning's incident has caused an uproar. How could someone like her join Hairui? Faced with the employee's question, Mo Ting glared at him and replied coldly, how did someone like you, who doesn't think before speaking, enter the management level? Is this your first day in the entertainment industry? You should believe whatever the public says. Why don't you go and be an anti-fan instead of being in the management level? Whose subordinate is this? Take him back and write him a 30,000-word reflection letter. Tomorrow morning, I want it on my desk. There will be no next time. The man suddenly fell silent. Of course, he didn't dare to make a sound. As for the rest of the management, because they had been in Hairui for many years and understood Mo Ting's style of doing things, if Tongning was really the kind of person the rumors made her out to be, there was no way Mo Ting would consider taking her under his wing. So, they did not have much of an opinion on Mo Ting's decision. We believe in the president's arrangements. Everyone else also expressed their support. In reality, most of them had seen Tongning's runway shows and had long been impressed by this talented model. They had always wanted to ask Mo Ting to poach Tongning, but because Tongning had been through so much, they were afraid Mo Ting would hate her, so they didn't dare to bring it up. Who would have thought, at a time like this, Mo Ting would offer to sign Tongning? Then it's decided. Fang Yu will stay, everyone else is dismissed. The higher-ups all stood up and left, leaving only the artist director, Fang Yu, in Mo Ting's office. Mo Ting handed the information prepared by Lu Che to Fang Yu and handed him full responsibility for the press conference. Fang Yu looked at the contract in his hands and was shocked. President Mo, your manager. I want to personally take care of Tongning. Is there a problem? Mo Ting lifted his head and asked. But don't let anyone know, not even Tongning herself. When the time is right, I will personally tell her. However, Fang Yu couldn't understand why Mo Ting would give Tongning such special treatment. Mo Ting seemed to know what Fang Yu was thinking, so he replied firmly, because she is worth it. I understand, President Mo, don't worry. After spending some time, Fang Yu understood everything that had happened since Tongning signed with Chengtian. But the thing that surprised him was, how did Mo Ting find out about all these details? unless he had been involved from the beginning. Regardless, Chung Tian Entertainment was indeed shameless. Especially when it came to Han Xiner, it was a completely despicable and shameless act. Of course, perhaps it was because he sympathized with Tang Ning's situation. Fang Yu began to look forward to Chung Tian Entertainment's explanation. That way, he could step out and slap them in the face. 3 p.m. After a discussion with the higher-ups of Chung Tian Entertainment, Luo Hao finally decided to step out for an interview at the entrance of Chung Tian Entertainment. Surrounded by the media and anti-fans, Luo Hao first bowed to everyone before turning to the cameras and responding. Firstly, on behalf of Chung Tian Entertainment and our model, Tang Ning, I would like to apologize to the public for the Han Xiner incident. It has been confirmed that our agency's artist, Tang Ning, did indeed have a verbal agreement with Han Xiner. However, as for the rumors online, we have no way of knowing the truth. Due to Tang Ning continuously denying the truth, refusing to cooperate with the investigation and arrogantly sending the agency a contract termination letter, from now on, Tang Ning will be removed from Chung Tian Entertainment. We cannot tolerate an artist with questionable character continuing to tarnish Chung Tian Entertainment's reputation. At this moment, Chung Tian Entertainment would like to appeal to the public. Towards those with bad character, we should unite as one to get rid of them. Tang Ning will be the first and only artist from Chung Tian Entertainment to publicly announce that they will be banned from the entertainment industry. Thank you everyone for your support of Chung Tian Entertainment. We will work hard to improve and I hope everyone will continue to monitor us. Long Jie looked at the news and watched as Luo Hao spat out word after word. She felt like he was slapping Lan Shi in the face. The first person Chung Tian Entertainment wants to ban is Lan Shi. At this time, Lu Che was also at Hyatt Regency. After seeing the news, he joined Long Jie in ridiculing. This level of shamelessness has completely overturned my worldview. Haha. Do those two even have worldview? Long Jie rolled her eyes. I really pity our Tang Ning. Pity. Lu Che turned around and glanced at Tang Ning. How was she pitiful for leaving a company like this and joining Hai Rui Entertainment? Luo Hao, that jerk, is still talking. He's still talking. I really want to snap his neck. Why is he so annoying? On the TV, Luo Hao continued to answer the reporter's questions. Do you have any more insider information about Tang Ning? All I can say is she is different from the person you guys see. People like this, Chung Tian Entertainment will ban every time they see them. Netizens seemed to be clapping and cheering at this result. Chung Tian announcing that they were banning Tang Ning was like giving her a death sentence. But since when did Chung Tian make the decisions in the entertainment industry? To everyone's surprise, after a short 10 minutes of Chung Tian Entertainment's interview, another piece of news completely blew up in the entertainment industry. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.